What's up, guys? This is D22 Sosa Wayne Chiang at Live at the Bike. This is the PokerCraft podcast. This is my special guest, Jay Rosenkrantz.
What's up?
So, some of you guys may know him like I know him, which is seeing his name on a ton of credits on like the micros, Deuces Cracked, but never actually meeting him in person. Maybe we battled online. We don't even know.
What was your screen name?
Which site?
PokerStars or Full Tilt?
Oh, PokerStars. It was Word Up, W3RDUP, and Full Tilt it was Seraphim with the E was a 3.
Interesting.
All my E's were 3s.
I'll have to go through my database.
Yeah.
I have you know how in the libraries they have card catalogs for the books?
We have Poker Tracker.
I have an actual physical
Oh my gosh.
card catalog of all the hands I've ever played.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize your name, so maybe it was in passing or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? There were a lot of people battling back then. So we'll go through your story and then your poker story, and you've done so much stuff that I definitely remember Deuces Cracked, and Garrett Adelstein was one of the brands, so you were effectively Garrett's boss at one point.
Collaborator, maybe.
Collaborator. You did the micros, the films. I remember the first episode. I watched it back then. I rewatched it, and you had a shout out to StarCraft and Magic in there.
Mm-hmm.
It really grasped the naivete, probably, of up-and-coming poker players. And you did Bet Race Fold and 2M to MM, 2 months to $2 million. And we're going to talk about that. And then for film, you did Giver Taker.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of the audience who don't know what YCombinator is, they're responsible for many multi-billion-dollar companies such as Airbnb, Dropbox, Reddit. And you got in the program, which I got rejected from. And you have a startup called Figments you applied to Y Combinator with Figments, and
yes.
We'll talk more about that. So let's start with your overall life story first.
My life story.
Get into poker.
The origin story.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up on Long Island, suburbs.
Great iced tea.
Yep. And I think my grandmother was, there were probably two foundational elements of my poker story. My grandmother taught me how to play cards. She played in the same mahjong game with the same 3 women at the pool club every week for probably 2 decades.
So probably wasn't Texas Hold'em back then.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, mahjong. But she taught me 5-card draw and
right.
Go fish and put a deck of cards in my hand and taught me how to shuffle. And, I think it was maybe in 6th or 7th grade I saw Rounders with my friends. And so these two combined, and before you knew it,
right.
We're having weekly card games at my buddy, one of my best friends growing up, his name is Rich Yu. He's now a clergyman, okay. But he was at the time a degenerate gambler like me and video game player, and we would play in his house, in his den, and in his basement with a group of kids that we called the Original Six. And we would just play
That's awesome.
7-card stud and Texas Hold'em, and then go to Nathan's and play video games. That was every Friday night in 6th or 7th grade. This graduated to becoming obsessed with playing poker in the lunchroom for money at first, and then the teacher aides were like, what are you kids doing? You can't be playing for nickels and dimes on the table.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so then we graduated to notebooks and keeping ledgers. And, eventually I think I was the one of us who really couldn't stop thinking about poker all the time.
Right.
And I went to the bookstore in the library. I got books. I started reading them. And then I started getting into this underworld of gambling on Long Island where I'd play in all these
CD home games.
Colorful home games. Yeah,
Wow.
CD is one way to say it. Filled with a just incredible cast of characters, and I ended up taking trips to Atlantic City when I was 16, 17, and
was Phil Ivey there at the time or no?
He might have been.
Yeah.
It was more
Nahum Jerome.
the hero back then was not Nahum Jerome. It was Johnny Chan from Rounders.
Right.
It was always like
he plays here now.
Really?
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, it's come full circle. So but yeah, but my sort of dream was always go to film school. I love Star Wars. My brother, he's 7 years younger. Scott, he loves Star Wars. Star Wars was a foundational story myth for our family. It was, I think our dad sat us down in front of it on VHS at the time and was like, pay attention to this because
It's going to be something big.
well, it is something big, but he was like the creator of this, George Lucas.
Yeah.
He built his empire on toys of these characters. And so if you guys ever start a business together, think about characters that can be toys.
Right.
And so that was instilled in us in a really young age. And I went to film school, Boston University, because I wanted to write stories. I was always writing. And
So you're more the screenwriter side of the film development?
yeah, I only wanted to, going into BU, I only wanted to learn about writing.
Right.
I only wanted to learn about screenwriting
Right.
because I had no idea how do you become George Lucas. I was like, it was either Mikey McDermott or George Lucas.
Right.
Those were the two heroes, maybe Buzz Lightyear a little bit. And so I went off to film school and looking back, I think the thing that I maybe learned the most out of film school, I wrote a lot for class, but really when they make you go to a history of cinema class that starts at 7 a.m.,
Yeah.
like
It's
you're not going
not
to
a
watch
thing.
Battleship Potemkin when you're still like half asleep.
Right,
And so I learned most like how to play cards better. And I played lacrosse and I was in a fraternity, so I maybe started to learn a little bit about teams and about how you might fill different roles in a team and even lead teams. And so that was my experience in college. And when I graduated, I was playing like online poker. I played in this regular card game with some friends in school.
Former friends.
Yeah. Also some legendary characters in my story. I'm sure everyone watching is, it resonates with them. Once everyone sort of comes through a scene with all these characters, like Bahama Mike or, Crocodile Joey or whatever, or
Right,
The
right,
Tooth,
right.
you name it. Everyone's got these people. And I never got the hang of online, though. I was playing it. I would win a bunch. I took my roommates at the time to like a steak dinner when I had a big winning on Poker Room. I think I got like the royal flush bonus because I got
Whoa,
lucky.
Sick.
Yeah, I mean, total luck, right? And I was playing at Foxwoods a little bit in college,
Okay.
but I didn't have the hang of it. I was still a degen in a lot of ways. But had begun to post a little bit. I was aware of 2+2, and I started to become aware of things like Rakeback, and that there was maybe a community of people who had like figured out how
Right.
to win consistently at internet poker.
Let's go through your history of like which sites you played on and then interject like kind of your learning process.
Yeah, well, Empire Poker was big when I was in school.
Empire was a skin for party poker.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time though. It had like a blue and black aesthetic
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mainly played on then Party Poker. That was like
Yeah.
going through senior year, and a buddy of mine from growing up, we went to high school together. Chuck Danielson, he and I reconnected that probably the summer between junior and senior year when I was home on Long Island. My family owned a gas station. It was like passed down through generations in Queens. And so my brother and I would go, and that summer I'd wake up, my dad would wake up at like 4 a.m. to drive to Queens and open up the gas station because he was managing it. And I would go and like pump gas because I'd lost all my money playing poker and I needed to make $100 or something like
So
that.
you basically had to drive the truck, Kanish's truck.
Exactly. I was driving Kanish's truck. I'd reconnected with my buddy Chuck on AOL Instant Messenger, AIM at the time. And he's like, "You still playing poker?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "A little bit, but I don't really like, not really."
They got you.
Yeah, I don't think you can win. He goes, "You know about 2+2?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I figured out how you could multi-table, limit hold'em, and make $15 an hour." And I'm just like, $15 an hour? There's a you got a Mac to do that?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, come over. And so we reconnected and we started playing and we started really feeding off each other. And he kind of showed me how to look at it like online poker,
Right.
like it was a business.
Yeah.
And also like it was a ton of fun. And we had a lot of fun together. And so when I graduated in Boston, I went back to school. We stayed in touch. And when I graduated, he was like, "I'm going to be an economist in New York City." It's always like a brilliant MathMind. And he's like, I'm looking for a roommate. You want to come move to New York City,
You're like,
live with
"Alright."
me? You could play poker. I started coaching a few people because I was posting a lot on 2+2, and people would come to me and be like, I really like your posts. Would you be open to coaching? And I didn't. First, I'm like, sure, like $30 an hour or something, and then slowly but surely
it goes up.
It goes up because
it's worth a lot.
it's worth a lot. But for me, it was like I really enjoyed talking about poker to other people and trying to help people who were still figuring out things that I had already figured out. And so over time, it was like I remember I probably was coaching like 8 people, and it was just taking up so much time that somebody was like, can you coach me? I've heard a lot of good things about you. And I was like, I don't have enough time. And he's like, what if I paid you $120 an hour?
You're like,
and I'm
okay.
like, yeah. So suddenly, like, it goes up.
Yeah.
And now I've got a little coaching business, and I'm living in Tribeca with Chuck and an investment banker that was our third roommate, right on the edge of the west side of New York. Like, we had built like I had the least money of everybody, so I was living in like a tiny fake room with a fake wall, looking out over the. It was really cool. It was looking out over the Hudson River, but during the day when I was grinding online poker, I'd get blinded by the sun, and there's nothing I could do about it. For whatever reason, I didn't think about installing blinds, and so
this is funny because you're on the East Coast and I was on the West Coast, so you see the sunrise, we see the sun set.
Right? Yeah,
something small that people don't really think about.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So this was around like 2003, 2004.
This was 2006.
Right? So Party was still, or was it still around then?
Yeah. Okay. Party didn't leave until.
Oh, you're right. Yes, 2009. Sorry. Yeah, I got the timeline messed up. Okay.
Yeah,
I got it.
So like Chuck would, he'd go to work. He was an economist for the city. We'd get up, we'd get coffee together. He'd come home. All the lights in the apartment would be out except for the glow of my like 4 monitors as I'm like 12 tabling, and I would get up and he'd be like, you want to get food and play some more poker? I'm like, I definitely want to get food, definitely want to play more poker, but I can't see straight because the sun has been piercing my eyeballs all day. And so
there's no DoorDash back then.
No DoorDash. There was Seamless Web, which had just started, which we got into. We were doing I remember there was this Chinese food place in the financial district called All Mandarin. Every Sunday we would get All Mandarin and we would watch Entourage. That was like the life.
Oh my gosh.
We were playing internet poker.
Right.
At one point, just to, this is about a year of doing this. I was playing probably 100,000 hands a month, so I was getting a lot of experience. I was posting feverishly all day, every day on 2+2. I was coaching all the time, so my abilities were sort of taking off. And through living in New York, a few key things happened. One, I connected with 2+2ers who were living in New York, including
shout out anyone?
Vanessa Selps.
Okay.
And she and I became very, very close. And this was over the years, and this was the beginning of our friendship. And she was living in Brooklyn. She had a Miss Pac-Man machine in her apartment or condo or whatever. The piece of property that she had bought with her poker winnings at the time, which I thought was so cool. And she was hilarious and incredible mind for poker that was different than many of the other minds that I was talking to. And we sort of all got together with a bunch of 2+2ers and went to Las Vegas for New Year's in a totally debaucherous, ridiculous, just like everyone's first time in Vegas with online poker money type of experience.
Wow, yeah.
Meanwhile, in New York, I had my biggest winning day at the time, which was maybe like 10K or something like that. And then the next day I woke up and I had an email from NetTeller. NetTeller doesn't exist anymore, but it was like the payment processor between Party and...
Did you get the word? Because like I cashed out almost everything. Like people on 2+2 were warning that like this was probably going to happen and had reliable sources. So 5 months before it went down, I was already...
Yeah, I feel like I vaguely remember that. This was before that, when they had money, because I woke up to this email saying, congratulations, you've won the Play Into Summer giveaway. Here's a free trip for you and another to Monaco.
Okay.
And I'm like, and a helicopter ride and a bunch of chips to play in the casino and a free car rental. I'm like, sweet, this is pretty cool. I wish I had a girlfriend, but hey, Chuck, do you want to go? I'm like, you want to like get HBO's Rome on DVD and like go and play online poker in Monaco and watch Rome? And he's like, yeah. So we had a bro trip to Monaco, and when I got back, that was probably like year 1 done, and I had grinded up like a real bankroll at this time. I started gotten the hang of like mid-stakes no limit. I was playing like probably 2-4 to 3-6.
What year was this?
2006.
2006. Okay, yeah.
Maybe 5-10 as well. And maybe 10, maybe some shots at 10-20 because I was always taking shots. But I was really, I think 3-6 was probably where I was grinding most of my hands. And maybe 5-10 too.
This was Party Poker.
Party Poker.
Yeah.
Only Party Poker at the time.
I was Jack Bauer and my E was a 3.
Yeah.
I played up to 10-20.
I think I was Yo Petey.
I've
on
made,
Party
actually,
Poker.
it sounds familiar. It's not, I definitely remember something like that.
When did I start playing? I might have started playing on Full Tilt around here too, because the genesis for my screen name on Full Tilt, Prinny Raid, was there's this like game called Disgaea. It's kind of like an anime strategy game.
Okay.
And there's a character that's like sort of a pawn in chess called a Prinny. It's like a penguin with wings.
Okay.
And Chuck was playing this all the time. And so Prinny Raid was there. All the Prinnies just come and pile on and destroy the enemy. And that was my screen name. And so I think it was invented while I was living in Chuck. Meanwhile, in New York City, so I meet White Lime, Emil Patel, probably out through some friends. He's also a poker player online. I had developed this from all of the inbound coaching. I had more requests than I could possibly count, and so I started recruiting other coaches and passing students to them, and built a business now called 3bet.net, where I was taking, I forget the amount, some vig on handing away students to other coaches, and we had a network of coaches where we were teaching people.
So now you have your own affiliate program.
Yeah, basically. But, it's a lot of work. I'm not good at answering support email. Chuck started helping me a bit with support email. We started talking about the coaching business. And I think it was in Monaco, we were looking at Card Runners, and Card Runners was doing training sites. They were the only training site at the time. And
I remember them.
I'd met Taylor in New York, and Taylor and I actually, through a series of events, were featured in like a Forbes.com video interview about the nascent poker training industry at the time. Before, it was just Card Runners, and my site was 3bet. And we started thinking about this, and then I met White Lime, and he was looking for a roommate. I knew he was really good from his posts, and he had won a lot of money playing, and he was a really smart guy. And so I'm like, he's living in the financial district. I'm like, sure, I'll move in with you. And he had just taken like a year off from school, and he was meant to go back to finish his degree. And he was done with poker when I moved in. And meanwhile, I'm setting up in the living room. He's got one TV on top of another TV in the living room to like play video games and watch sports. And we're living with a third roommate again.
# custom setup.
Yeah, and I start playing online poker. And, he's sitting on the couch, like on his laptop, supposed to be doing schoolwork, and he starts just like saying, "Why'd you do that?" Or like, why wouldn't you 3bet him there? That's like so dumb not to 3bet him.
Yeah.
And suddenly I drew him back in, and suddenly he's playing.
His destiny chose him.
Yeah. And we're chopping action now, and we're taking shots at bigger games. I think I was probably playing like 5-10 when I moved back in, and suddenly we're into 10-20 games. We're even taking shots at 25-50 games, and we're doing pretty well. And it's like his mind also is another sort of, it's a testament to what it does to your game at certain points in your career when you can surround yourself with
bright minds
that think about the game differently than you do.
Yeah.
Because you hear their voice in your head, and you're constantly discussing strategy and testing out, well, what if you did this, or what do you think of this line? And you're getting these perspectives, and it's molding the way you think about poker.
Yeah, which you really demonstrate with the pilot episode of the Micros, when people are arguing over what to do with kings in this.
Yeah, well, to jump ahead to the Micros at its core, and this is actually really, I have to give it up to my co-creator of the Micros and the director and sometimes co-writer of that show, John Ray, who I met on 2+2, Jimmy Legs, and who I was thinking about doing a comedy show about the people who worked at an online poker site. As I thought that was hilarious. You could do it like The Office. I was already writing scripts. And he was like, that's a great idea. We could do a show. We could do it animated.
And then the super user thing came out, right?
That would have made it more funny. But he was like, but we should do it about actual poker players. It will be people will be able to identify more with the characters at the core. And in discussing this with him, in these creative collaborations, you can't really remember whose idea it was first. It was somebody's idea.
It was mine.
It might have been yours. And it came up, well, these three characters should represent the core archetypal psychologies of poker players.
Right.
And so we came up with Tommy Fook, who is the nit. The guy who's got 1,000 buy-ins for his stakes and is too afraid to move up because he's consistently grinding out a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And then we've got Rose, a.k.a. Balls, Rose Bollinger, the complete maniacal degen. And, she was really inspired by two characters who came through my life, which was Jonas Enton, Riverboat King, who was just a legendarily hilarious but also crazy gambler who was part of our scene and crew for a while, and Vanessa. Particularly Vanessa's moments of brilliance.
Self's not Rousseau, right?
Seltz. Vanessa's moments of brilliancy and her degeneracy that we had enjoyed together through the years. And finally, like Chase Berger was the hero, the protagonist, who's basically the heart of the story. He's the dreamer whose dreams are too big for his bankroll,
right?
And aka his skills. And so he's always
aka literally every poker player.
Right. We knew that if you could, and then we knew that. I don't want to say that this maybe came to us just in the creative process. It wasn't really calculated, but we knew that we had a story that people could connect with that we thought was funny because we're in the opening of that show, you're experiencing the universal situation of what happens when you have pocket kings and a huge hand and an ace flops,
right?
Which everyone can connect with. And I was talking to a friend recently who's an incredible writer, and he was like, I think he described it as like that moment where you sort of are them, like you feel for them, and
right.
It's just like you watch somebody spill coffee on themselves, and you're like, that sucks.
What was the villain's name?
Swede Tooth, I think.
Swede, like SWEDE.
Yeah.
Tooth.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even remember where that came from, but
Sweden was pretty hot when it came to the poker scene.
Right. Yeah.
So it's probably how you.
Yeah, Swedish guy or girl. Yeah. And I mean, I really am jumping ahead, but like John and I really got into this, and we were actually using a software tool that doesn't exist anymore that was really cool for collaboration called Google Wave.
Okay.
That allowed real-time sort of creative writing and ideating and building a world. And we worked on this in a hole for like 3 months, and we thought maybe a couple people will watch this. Like it amused us. We were really supercharged.
Yeah.
We didn't have any grand design. There was no series. We thought we'd keep doing more of them because it was fun and there was more stories that we could tell with them. But so then
it gets too tiring.
It wasn't tiring. It was just like we worked on it for enough time where we're like, okay, I think this is pretty good. It's time to ship it. Like it doesn't make sense to keep working on it and keep tweaking it. And then I think we had 400,000 views like the first tweet about it, and then the next day, Mark Brody, who's the head of global television production at Full Tilt at the time, somehow got my phone number, called me, and he's like,
"Yo, Jay."
He's like, "I love the micros.
Right.
We want to buy it." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean buy it?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Whatever you want. Like, we want to. There's you got something amazing and rare, and we want to get behind it." And so I called John, and I was like, "This dude called me.
He wants to buy it.
He wants to buy it."
Yeah. It's like,
we're like, "What the hell do you mean?" And so, long story short, we talked, and Mark Brody ended up becoming the executive in charge of production of the micros at Full Tilt, and Full Tilt sponsored the show.
Sick.
And allowed us to keep making episodes until Black Friday.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we got off track, but like that was
it was just too excited about the micros. Yeah.
I mean, the micros was one of the most fun projects that I've ever done. I think John feels similarly, and we it was really. I think we're glad that we were able to do a hilarious Black Friday episode that culminated the sort of first arc of the characters, but and we're really proud of it. But like, it was definitely sort of ended before we intended it. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, maybe it can be revived like a lot of other shows. The reboot or like X years later.
I mean, you never know. Maybe 2 months, 2 million could be back when we're the training our kids to take over for us.
I think, like, I mean, Poker After Dark was revived on Poker Go, and just like when we look at things from an industry point of view, like, the poker industry, the tech industry, the Hollywood industry, like the industry itself won't die, but there's going to be like ebbs and flows on like what comes up, comes down, and then of course if people have nostalgic affinity for something like the micros, like why not? And it's your thing, and you're gonna get some feedback from this. So
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean,
micros.
I mean, certainly we know that the fans love it. We love the fans. We love creating that community around it, and we're super passionate about the characters. And we always imagine Chase went off into the wilderness and grown a long depression beard at the end of online poker, and those characters still live in us, but I think John and I have both moved on to other things, and I think poker itself has moved on. So that time where we were alive with excitement to tell stories about poker players and to tell those stories is sort of, with creating, I'm sure you feel this way as well, as I think all creators do. It's really like it takes a lot of energy, and when it's going well, that energy is flowing, and you're super inspired. And if you can't keep that current alive, those projects usually end up dying or sitting on the back burner. So you really need that electricity to sort of be flowing, and you need to have that inspiration where, like, your mind can't stop thinking about the poker hand you just played or you got bad beaten. Your mind needs to be on that story all the time in order to bring it to life.
Well, Inception, right?
Yeah.
Like, once an idea is planted, you can't get out of your head.
That's true.
What I'm going to plant in your head right now is, one, you have a lot of fans. Two, there's been a lot of journeys since the era where back then it was basically you played live or you played online. Some people did a bit of a hybrid like myself. And then when Black Friday hit, you had to scour for online opportunities, and a lot of people headed to live. Like, I met a lot of people at Commerce that played online that I played with every day, but I never got to see a face. I just see, G-Man, check raise nothing, bet, biggest fish ever, get there,
Sure.
It's like, so then you see him as a person, you're like, oh, this guy's, pretty cool. But of course, cards, it's not personal. We're playing for money, so we gotta fight with them. But, like, I would have never thought, even up to 5 years ago, probably even 4 years ago, that I would do this, like
Sure.
Live at the Bike broadcast. And this is just one path. Dan Zach has another path. Sean Snyder's got another path. Bryce Yaki's another path. You have another path. The co-creator of the Micros is writing Eternals now, right?
He did no. That's so. John Ray.
Whoops.
Yeah, John Ray co-created the Micros.
Yeah.
He is just like a brilliant animation director, hilarious guy, like just endless depths of talent. Ryan Firpo co-created.
Ryan Firpo.
He and I made From Busted to Robusto, were these short films. The first one was about Captain Zebo, and the second one was about Andrew Roble. Good to see you.
Right.
And then we made.
I watched that one. Yeah, it was really good.
Cool, thanks. And then we sort of graduated into making a feature film called Bet Race Fold: The Story of Online Poker, which to us was the story. And Ryan went on to then connect with his cousin Matt, and they became a screenwriting duo. They wrote Rune, which topped the Blacklist in 2017. And
so for people who don't know what the Blacklist is, it's the list of best unproduced screenplays in Hollywood, and then oftentimes it gives them enough momentum to get created.
Yeah, so that really launched their career as screenwriters, and Matt's a rising director as well, and they went on to get hired by Marvel to write The Eternals, and
Sick.
It's coming out next year.
MCU, shout out to MCU. You an MCU guy?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I enjoy them. I can pick at them and I can enjoy them.
Were you a comics fan before?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love Spider-Man. I mean, I love Marvel comics. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean,
I still like DC, but Marvel, I've always been make mine Marvel.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, there are some movies in the MCU that I really love, and there are some that I could do without. There are some that I enjoy more than others.
Sure.
There's so many
Same
of them
way,
now,
yeah.
but it's amazing that
they even got there.
Yeah.
I'm just like, when Avengers Endgame came out, and the final, they have, Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man fight
Right.
Thanos. Spoilers, they get beat down, and
Yeah.
then just like Cap's got the broken shield.
Yeah, yeah.
He's gonna take on the whole army. It's like,
It's
and then
awesome.
when everybody came in, it's like, oh man, like how long do I have to wait for this? And I can't wait for the X-Men to come in.
Yeah.
MCU.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I think Marvel, and I read The Ride of a Lifetime, which is Bob Iger's sort of memoir or autobiography, I guess, and he basically, when he became CEO of Disney, he sort of developed a special team to start to identify acquisitions that would help them acquire the best content in the world. And so
Marvel and Star Wars.
yeah,
Boom.
they're
That's
Pixar
you.
and
Yeah.
Pixar. And so
Oh yeah,
he
that's
had
right.
three. These were his three sort of companies that he went after. And with Marvel, he saw that they had this endless library of IP
Yeah.
that they would be able to
Tap from.
tap because those stories are so valuable. That's and Kevin Feige is the one who
Shout out
was
to
just
Kevin
like
Feige, yeah.
he was a producer, the mega producer, basically the mastermind of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
And he saw that, the reason why superhero movies didn't work before was that people kept trying to just make movies using the iconography,
Superpowers,
but
yeah.
like the stories were what was valuable, and so that's what they adapted and brought to the universe and the movies.
It's ironic that what was it, Scorsese that said
Yeah.
Marvel films are not cinema. It's
Right. It's interesting too because I mean, well, it's just like in some ways it's just one person's opinion. So,
One of the
totally
things
fair.
that's rough for the pre-internet generation, and I had many screenwriting consultants that I had this issue with. It's like movies pre-internet get outdated because now we have internet and smartphones that solve so many dilemmas, provided you have reception and
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, that were issues back then. And even their era, like a lot of the films, if we go back and watch them, could they just have been solved through faster communication or Googling something? It's just like, it's a different era. And a lot of stories nowadays are told by like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. It's just like, it's a completely different forum now. Like a lot of these movies incorporate all that
Sure.
in it. And it just, that's the era that it is now. And maybe they're missing something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think media is always changing, it's always evolving. There's always new experimentation that lead to new forms. The principles of storytelling are always the same because what
Hero's
they are.
Journey.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even call it the hero's journey, but the hero's journey is something that a lot of people can connect with. It's sort of
Right.
this idea of this mythic journey that every person takes. It's generally associated with coming of age stories, and there are these touchstones, and it's been popularized over time as a way to sort of understand why stories work. But like the way I like to think about it is the reason stories work are because they connect with the way a human mind goes about solving a certain kind of problem. So getting out of a situation or attacking a goal or finding a way of a new way of relating to certain kinds of people, and then it's just illustrated by the form it's taking. And so that's probably hard to understand, and the hero's journey is a lot easier to understand, but there's something, the reason we go to movies, the reason we watch TV, we're compelled by other people's stories, by what's happening to them, and we look to them because consciously or unconsciously, it shows us another way of existing in the world.
Right.
Um,
Do you have a favorite
favorite story?
for in the MCU?
Oh, favorite for the MCU?
Yeah.
A
lot of
I mean, Thor Ragnarok comes to mind because it's so funny and it was so
over the top,
unexpected.
yeah.
And what I love about Thor Ragnarok is that the characters' situations seem to change every sequence. Where
Right.
like suddenly Thor's like the greatest, and then he's
like beat up
yeah,
by Thor.
yeah, and
Hulk,
then and then Hulk and Thor are roommates
Yeah.
for a sequence, and it's just like the dynamics keep shifting, and it's just endlessly funny. So I really appreciate that one. In terms of like maybe the just best kind of hero's journey kind of story, because that's what Marvel really traffics in.
Right.
Probably Iron Man.
The original one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Captain America, like the original First Avenger also.
They're all. Yeah. I mean, I can't like no matter how bad it is, it's never really bad. It's always at a certain standard.
Yeah.
And then some of them are just like, super good and just like, yeah.
They always make you laugh. They
Yeah.
always like have exciting sequences, good action. Like some are better than others, but generally there's some sort of core to it that makes you understand how somebody who is flawed like us is able to step forward and become a hero.
Right. So one of the differences I think the Avengers and the X-Men do is like Avengers are like, I'm the hero, I'm the greatest, then they get humbled and then they have to recover as a human being. Whereas X-Men are kind of like the outcasts and they have to like, internally prove and then externally prove that they're good people even though they're shunned from society.
That's true. Like the Avengers are really celebrated and looked to solve society's problems,
Yeah.
where the X-Men's they are outcasts and have to find a way to sort of solve these problems
Yeah.
together and
To blend in.
yeah.
And even the how the teams are constructed is like the Avengers are all like superheroes and just have like ideological conflicts and they have to work together for a greater threat. Where the X-Men's like, it starts where the threat is just like known and everybody has an internal conflict that, has trying to work for the same goal.
Right,
So,
that's interesting. Yeah, sure. That is very true. I hadn't thought about that.
and then the micros, the next generation is going to be about different paths in the poker world and they're all coming together and sharing about it.
See, yeah, like it would be great to sort of do this and talk about what that would have looked like back when we were actually trying to find funding to make the micros and continue it. But
Don't let it die, man. Don't let it die. We got you, man. We got you.
Just like the world has changed, my life has changed so much. And
Yeah.
I mean, I moved to Austin, Texas after online poker shut down. We finished Bet Raise Fold because we needed to tell the story for people to have something that would
anchor,
explain.
yeah.
And
Anchor that world. And
then
what it was like.
I went on a journey to figure out how can, like many other people who are moving away from poker, how can I tell stories that connect to people beyond just cards played online or in a poker room, and that led me to actually like starting the first company that I started with my brother and another poker player called Martov, and we created over 3 years one of the first character-driven virtual reality adventure games.
Right.
So I've been on a whole
Different trajectory.
Yeah, I was making games. I was pioneering this new medium, trying to figure out how to tell stories and inside a world that you're wandering around and able to interact with. And then that led me to we shipped this game and we created a second game that Martov is still making. Scott and I left and we started thinking about all of this, and that was the genesis of Figments, which we applied to YCombinator and were lucky enough and fortunate enough to get in and have another transformative life experience.
All right, so I'll talk about YCombinator in layman's terms, and then lead into your participation in it. So YCombinator was founded by Paul Graham. Paul Graham, if you guys haven't read his essays, just go Google him, and then he's got a lot of videos, via YCombinator and Stanford. And basically, he was an employee, or sorry, I think he had his own startup and he got bought up by Yahoo. Or anyway, he was giving startup advice, but he's like, yeah, but go do it on your own. Like, go fund it. I'll just give you my 2 cents. And then he felt bad, and he was like, not really helping people get to where they want to be, and just do as I say, but go do it yourself. So then he founded YCombinator, in which a lot of great companies came out from it that are worth billions and billions of dollars, such as Reddit, Dropbox, Zenefits, Twitch, countless companies. Airbnb, yeah. And then a lot of these ideas were just like, if you pitched like Airbnb to me and I was a venture capitalist, I'd be like, sorry, no, this is not going to happen. And then it happens, and you're like, wow, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, Airbnb famously almost didn't get in. So
right.
You weren't alone in that.
Yeah, so was it Chevsky? Who else?
Brian Brian Chevsky, the second founder's name escapes me, but they were the ones, and
Yeah.
they had a third co-founder who was the technical guy.
Right. So the story behind that one, and this is why Paul Graham got impressed with them, is that when they were searching for funding, they needed money, and then what they did was they bought generic cereal from like Costco or something like that, and it was during the election seasons, and they had the McCain and Obama cereal, and they just sold them for like $40 a pop.
Sure.
So they had margins. So the Paul Graham's like, hey, if you could do this,
Well,
I'm gonna give you a chance.
So they interesting context. So they gave him, I think it was like right after their interview, they had this argument: don't bring the Obama O's, like don't bring it. He doesn't want to see the Obama O's, and so one of the founders brought the Obama O's anyway and left it with him, leaving the interview.
Yeah.
And I think he probably had the thought, if these guys are coming up with ideas like making Obama O's, it's not a business, but like I want to bet on them. I guess
Right.
I'll bet
the
on them.
fake problem solvers are just like people.
And the reason that him and Jessica Livingston founded YCombinator to begin with, they wanted to basically build a startup that funds startups. I don't know if they considered that what they were at the time, but their reasoning was that like they wanted to figure out where they're wrong. They assumed that they would just fail and lose all their money. Because they're like, we don't know anything about startup investing.
Yeah.
We don't even know anything about building startups. So we're just going to like use this as an experience of learning and iterating on how to build a successful startup. And then they started to learn and be surprised by so many things, including that the most important trait in founders is not intelligence like a lot of people would think. It's determination.
Right. Yeah, that's a huge thing. And then, Twitch TV had Siebel, Justin Kahn.
Yeah, Michael Seibel, Justin Kahn, Immature.
I read these names on text, so I don't know how they're pronounced.
Sure.
And then Sam Altman, he did Looped. And then, just a lot of...
Yeah, now Sam Altman was president after Paul Graham, and then he now left to be in charge of OpenAI. So,
I mean...
Yeah,
pretty important.
Yeah, artificial general intelligence they're focused on. They have like $1 billion in funding. So
yeah, when I went broke from poker, I was already paying attention to this stuff, but then I applied to YCombinator, and my project, which even if it does, I mean, I believe in like a project like that should exist, but I'm not the one to carry it out. And it was a big handicap for me because at that time, I think it was 2013, 2014, they did not want any gaming or esports startups, and all my credits are like esports. Like, I was #1 ranked Command & Conquer, Warcraft 2, StarCraft World Champion, 2 Magic the Gathering Pro Tours. I did well in ladder in Warcraft 3, and then I worked for Gamers.com. I was basically the face of StarCraft strategy back then, and now I'm like, well, can't use any of this. So the second time I applied, I'm just like, screw it. I'm just going to do a gaming application, and it wasn't accepted, but we discussed this before. I'm just like, I'm not really an academic person compared to academic people. So I was like, I'm going to do, like, you shouldn't, this is for the audience, don't put your self-worth in these, like, institutions. Like, sure, the top people and the people who get in are extremely brilliant and go on to do amazing things, but there's so many ways to, like, do things. Like, I was interviewed twice for the UCLA screenwriting program, and I decided not to pursue it. One of my mentors basically said, if you make it, it's not because of UCLA, it's because you make it. And you see, like, especially in the arts, the people who go to film school aren't necessarily the ones that succeed. It's the people who, with determination, great ideas, and stuff like that. So that leads into your era where you applied to Y Combinator with a gaming/esports idea, and then you got accepted.
Yeah, I mean, so for us, I definitely agree with you. I think you learn by doing. I think I learned by doing. I did go to film school, but the way I learned how to tell stories and
by actually doing it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good idea to tell a story about a poker player in the online generation, and I posted on 2+2, and Ryan Furpo emailed me and was like, I was thinking about the same thing. And he showed up in Las Vegas, to go back to where we started the first summer after I lived with Emil. I was in Vegas, and he had a treatment for a movie. called From Busto to Robusto, and it became Bet Raise Full. It became these documentaries, and we made them. I was like, I don't know, and he's like, I'm an indie filmmaker. I don't know either, but you got some money from poker. Why don't we do this? You want to do it? I want to do it. You can fund it. And so
I had 6, but I had to try.
Yeah, I mean, we did with and Dan Morris and Dean Strachan also helped fund it, and then we got some of the most notable and famed and successful internet poker players of our generation to fund Bet Raise Fold. Tom Dwan and Peter Jetton, David Benefield, Andrew Roble, Ariel Schneller, Lucky Chewy, Ben Sulsky, many others who I'm probably...
Shout out to all these guys.
Yeah, I mean, they funded, they put their money in, and like, we got lucky in that we didn't lose it all. We didn't make a profit on that movie, but we all got to participate in making something that exists now. Yeah. And then we put it on Kickstarter, and the community really helped us distribute it. And so a lot of people that we never got to meet and that we don't know backed it as we were moving into release and helped us get it in front of everybody all around the world. But we just did that by doing and thinking, this is going to be a good idea. Let's try to figure it out, which is what poker taught me. Like, you just got to play, and that's how you learn. You don't learn, like, studying can help you, but you actually have to be, like, spending most of your time playing and thinking about what you're doing. Same thing with storytelling.
Right. So then when you played on Live at the Bike during the eSports game, it's very apparent that we're of a similar generation, because back then, before there were solvers and stuff like that, we basically thought about the game and were willing to play any 2 cards in any spot. And just like, if you screw up a hand in a certain spot, you got to think your way out of it, because everybody screws up. Or your opponent puts you into a difficult spot and you have to just like evolve and adapt, and you still got it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I'm rusty for sure. But at the same time,
you're still a thinker.
Yeah, you're playing. How you play is always relative to who you're playing with. Yeah. So in that game, I know I can get away with a lot of things as long as I don't mess up the really tricky spots that result from playing out of line in different situations. And if you're in a game where many people are playing out of line, you have a little bit more freedom, and that's always been my style. I've always played a lot of hands very aggressively, so I have built up, like riding a bike, a very good and deep understanding of spots that many other people are uncomfortable being in.
Right. And we're the same generation as Garrett Adelstein. He holds you in very high regard. Like, your name came up, and he's like, yeah, he said a lot of good things about you. But a lot of it's
Garrett.
Yeah.
I mean, I hold him in high regard.
Yeah, I mean, we all do.
Amazing things.
It's just, I mean, like, we're all really proud of, like, what he's doing for poker, his journey, and we probably have a lot of insight. Like, the people out there see his amazing plays, amazing table talk and reads, and, like, I think there's an extra layer. You probably know one side, I know a different side of, like, his development to getting to who he is, and that's, like, how he maneuvered through that journey is, I don't know, impressive to me.
Yeah, for sure. For everybody, I mean.
It's for everybody, but I think what people see on camera is just like a tip of the iceberg.
Sure.
And they don't realize how much he had to go through. And we probably don't know how much he's gone through to get to where he is, but we probably have more of an inside look and higher appreciation to how much he's studied, how much he's worked on the game. Like, when you're talking about out-of-line situations, in big bet games, I will handle them and I'll face tough situations, but I tend to want to shy away from tough situations. I want to be like, yo, show me the money, right?
Yeah, sure.
Garrett loves facing those, like, tough situations, and purposely gets himself in those. So he has so much practice.
Yeah.
It's just like amazing.
Because he knows he wins in them.
Yeah.
So, like, he has incredible amount of confidence and
positive reinforcement.
Yeah, he just goes for them because they're profitable and he knows it.
And
I think when you do that, if you can figure out a way to make it work and be a winning player, then you're able to carry that forward into multiple situations, which is a great metaphor for life too, and business. And I mean, poker is the ultimate life metaphor. It's a master metaphor.
So,
in many ways.
Before we lose track of the YCombinator stuff, so you have a company you applied with. Yeah.
So important sort of touchstones, and very quickly is I built Deuces Cracked over 8 years with like 5 other co-founders, and then with Scott, my brother, who has been probably the person that I talk most of anyone about stories my whole life. He and I started this virtual reality game studio with our friend Martin, who's also a poker player. He's in BetRace Fold. And we spent 3 years figuring out how to use new technology, including game engines, to tell stories. And so when we got out of that, we were spending a lot of time playing Fortnite and League of Legends. And we were talking, and we were like, what did we learn? Could we do another startup? Do we have the energy?
The heart.
Yeah, is there something exciting? Is that electricity there? And we thought, I remember I was watching like a League of Legends tournament, and I was like playing League of Legends, and I was trying to understand and connect with the stories and the players and just the coverage like I would watching like a poker tournament, except I couldn't. And I remember the moment where somebody chose, their draft was happening, and one of the players chose a Gnar. And the Gnar is like this Yordle, which is basically like a Moogle for Final Fantasy. It's a magical creature that can shapeshift and transform into a giant bear.
Okay, so for the audience, he's this little kid, or this little like bear-like creature. He throws a boomerang, but he builds rage, and when he gets angry enough, he becomes this big-ass monster that jumps and just like smashes, like the Hulk. Like,
yeah, exactly. And it's like, but he's so cute when he's little, so it's very comedic. But the casters, the commentators were treating it super seriously, incredibly dry, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? I can't. I am like somebody who, definitely not a hardcore viewer, but I'm not a casual either, and I'm super invested, and I want to watch this, and I want to connect, I want to enjoy it, but I can't. And so we started thinking a lot about this, and we basically we saw this opportunity to take everything that we had learned and put it together into sort of a new kind of technology-driven entertainment company for the gaming audience. And we applied to YCombinator, a friend of mine that I grew up with. We actually played poker together. He was very involved in the startup world. His name's Brad Feinstein. I started talking to people as we had this idea, explaining it to them. We built a prototype, showing it to them, and he was like, this is pretty crazy. You should apply to YCombinator. Never considered it, but I was thinking about the idea, and I was like, this is probably a good practice to put in this application because it will clarify the thought around how you could build a business around this. And we submitted, and it was more like a touchstone. Like, we were never like, we got to get in, or this isn't happening. We were like, no, we can't stop thinking about this. We're going to build it, and YCombinator application is just a moment in time. And then we were surprised when I'm super excited when we got the interview. And we didn't really, I knew Paul Graham, like Rob Cole, one of my co-founders at Deuces Cracked, was a big startup guy, big Paul Graham guy when we started Deuces Cracked in 2008 or 2009. And so I'd read his essays, but YCombinator was not like a mythic thing for me. It wasn't even in my
radar,
mind.
Right?
Yeah, until the day that Brad talked to me, and
so
we got the interview, and we only had 6 days to prepare for the interview. And Scott was taking a contract job in LA where he's grinding out sound design on Magic the Gathering videos for 72 hours straight. So he barely had any time to prepare. I went into hyper preparation mode, and all I knew was you can't reschedule the interview. It's 10 minutes, and you 2 hours later, you either get an email rejecting you or you get a phone call saying you're in. Here's funding, and come join our accelerator.
So what's the deal that you got? Has it changed? I know they increased the amount of funding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it changed from. It definitely changed. There's more money injected because the startup world requires more money now. Yeah. But it's every company gets the same deal. It's $150K for 7% of the company.
Right. Yeah.
And
it used to be like $30K for 7% or something.
Yeah, I mean, times are changing.
Yeah. Then convertible notes for up to 120 or something. That's what it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, so we read on their website, and it's pretty cool. It's public, so you can read all about what the YCombinator experience is like. And so we knew going to this interview, like we deliberately did not research any of the partners who were going to be interviewing us. We didn't want to know anything. We just knew there's some Jedi masters of capitalism and startups are going to be asking us questions, and so we came in and we pitched and we got in, and the thing that we pitched when we got in, we spent all summer in YCombinator essentially figuring out how to tell the story and how to build it. And so what Figments is and what we're building, it is the next version of the WWE for eSports. And to do this, we are creating brand new virtual characters with fictional storylines who play eSports. But unlike the WWE where the wrestlers body slam each other on TV, our characters compete at the most popular video games in front of gigantic live audiences on Twitch. And so what we want to do is take what is exciting about Marvel superheroes and villains and bring that into esports and develop characters whose lives are so committed and revolve around video games, and we can really show what it is to be a hero, to be a villain inside this world. And so when you talked to me earlier, when you were telling me about...
I didn't really understand, and that's like actually a good thing. It means you're probably onto something, because if I don't understand it and then something like Y Combinator picks it up, and now I'm getting it more, so I'm like, okay, I see where this is going now. But just like a lot of good ideas, when they're first pitched, you're like, I don't know. But you've given a lot more thought than myself or people listening. So
well, yeah,
you got to trust in yourself.
Well, so what it was like, we were going to build it. We were super passionate about it. We understood how we would do it, and then so we went into that interview. We were able to communicate that, and they called us. And the first thing the partner who called us said was like, "We think your idea is insane."
Yeah,
but also
like, insanely crazy.
You've seen a vision of the future that nobody else is really thinking about, and you walked us through it, and now we believe it, and let's build this together. And that was
totally agree now that you explained it to me.
So that was amazing. My brother and I, he was sleeping on his buddy's couch in LA trying to figure out his life, and suddenly we get to build Figments together, and we get to go to Silicon Valley, to Hogwarts for capitalism. That's what it was. That's what it is. It is basically magic school where they teach people with latent magic ability how to become wizards and save the world. That it's injected with this air of just feeling a positivity, and they have entrepreneurs from all walks of life, college dropouts to people older than I am from all over the world, India, Africa, every continent, coming with their ideas. Generally, some startups might have some customers already, some might not have any and just be ideas like us, and they really supercharge you with mentorship, wisdom, the feeling that you can actually succeed, but the understanding that the reality is that most startups fail.
Right.
So they're trying to help you sort of weave a through line to figuring out how are you going to avoid failure? How are you not going to die? And in not dying, how are you going to survive and grow into something meaningful and impactful that changes the world?
Yeah, that's something that I adopted from, them, Shark Tank plus Gary Vee is in this era, it's persistence, dedication, and survival are paramount, because there's so many good products that just ran out of funding, ran out of steam, and if they only held on for, I don't want to say a short time, but maybe 1 year, maybe 5 years, and then they probably make it.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. There's a lot of, somebody was telling me that you can make a lot of mistakes, but if you mess up the moments in which those mistakes matter hugely, then you're dead. And so it is a lot of luck and a lot of persistence, a lot of determination in avoiding those sort of black holes that crush you.
Right.
And so it was really an incredible experience. I feel like it was a gift. Scott feels like it was a gift. We were really lucky. We got to meet some incredible people. We got to when you've got, there's 186 companies in our batch, so there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And when you're meeting lots of other people, and they're, it's
Isn't
traditionally.
It intimidating?
I wouldn't say intimidating, but I would say I felt really grateful and just it was super cool because I'm like, what are you doing? And the founder's like, well, I'm building a gene debugger to make better drug treatments. And the other guy's like, I'm building a space tug to move space satellites.
You're
and
like Figments.
yeah, or like, we're building the WWE for esports. And they're like, what? We love it. What do you mean? And so we, in many ways, like, we got a lot of initial early adopters and fans through being in there with this crazy kind of company.
Right.
And it was really thrilling. And YC, traditionally, kind of like you said, they haven't really taken a lot of gaming companies. They're taking more and more now as gaming becomes a more
Thanks a lot,
mainstream
guys.
thing.
No, I don't fit
you
in,
might have been before your time, but like in many ways,
it's okay.
Just
like my competing in esports before my time.
Right, yeah, you were like an OG, and just like me building a virtual reality company, probably 5 years or even more before VR actually becomes a thing, if it does, and so
it'll become a thing. We just don't know. Yeah, I mean, who's gonna win? Like, everybody has a general idea what direction it's going, but just like so many things in the tech world or even other industries, nobody knows what's gonna happen.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we got excited by the promise of the technology.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to watch you.
I'm long on VR as well. Like, I really believe in it. I work so closely with the tech as it evolved in an insanely rapid speed, like incredibly rapid. But like when we started, it wasn't even on the market, and the stuff that was on the market was like low res. You had tons of cables. Now it's wireless and high res in just like a blink of an eye, and so it's really, I mean, Facebook really believes in it, so that money has pushed it forward.
John Carmack.
Yeah, John Carmack, who's now going to work on artificial general intelligence. He's leaving Oculus, but like
he's going places.
Yeah.
So time out for the people who don't know who John Carmack is. He was the creator of Doom 2, Wolfenstein, and Quake, and he just programmed it all by himself. I met him in person, and his, I think that time, wife, and as the audience says, I worked under Dennis Fong and Lyle Fong, his brother, who they founded Gamers.com, and Dennis did Xfire, and now he's at Plays.tv, and Lyle did Lithium, and then he went on to be a YCombinator mentor.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of history there.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So then, sorry,
where was I?
Sorry. Pioneering the VR, and then John Carmack.
Oh, sure.
And then,
right. So yeah. I mean, the coolest for people who haven't tried VR, probably the coolest things that I could recommend would be like if you're in a city where there's the Void, there's one in Santa Monica. You can do a multiplayer experience with your friends. You can go do Marvel's The Avengers experience, which is super cool.
Okay.
That we just tried.
You're gonna take me?
I can't do it twice.
Okay.
It's definitely not the kind of repeat experience that it would be like going to play a game of like Fortnite or League of Legends or whatever, or even to like Mortal Kombat in the arcade.
I just got dissed by Jay Rosenkrantz.
You gotta go.
Okay,
go and take like 3 people who have never tried VR before, and just go, and it's worth it, and it'll blow your mind. It's free roaming, transformative VR.
I've seen videos of people do this.
Yeah, it's way different when you experience it. That's one of the hardest things about selling VR and marketing it, is that you really
try it.
Yeah, you can't view it and watch it. And Beat Saber, which is sort of the breakthrough hit on home systems, it's like Guitar Hero with lightsabers. The big breakthrough that they had was they were able to create mixed reality videos that show and make you feel what it's like to be inside this rhythm game swinging lightsabers. And they sold over 1 million copies.
So that's just 1 million copies.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, relative to like what Blizzard is selling of its games, it's just a drop in the bucket.
Blizzard's been around for 35 years, I believe. Like, I was playing Warcraft 1.
Yeah.
I remember Warcraft, and they use some of the sounds in Warcraft 1 in Hearthstone.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, what an incredible company, incredible story. Riot also, incredible story of how they sort of built some of these games that became the foundation of modern esports. And the interesting thing is, like, for me, and regarding esports, is like, it was always sort of alongside what I was doing, but I was never in the scene. I was in the poker scene, right? And then I was in the game developer scene. And so when I looked at esports, I didn't watch the tournaments. I didn't participate in tournaments. I was playing poker. And then when I looked at it later, I was designing a video game. And so I was looking at esports in terms of the mechanisms that they were using to create characters in these worlds and design repeatable, competitive gameplay, like simple to pick up, very deep to master, which is where the scene came from, right?
Right.
And so now, like in some ways, my journey is now starting to become part of the modern scene, and also looking at it with the eyes of somebody who came to it from a completely new perspective, which is probably where Figments came from. It's
Right.
like we
Yeah.
had a different view of looking at it as video games and as storytellers.
That makes sense. That's why it was hard for me to like when I first read about it, and you first talking, I'm like, I don't really get it. But then you explain it, I'm like, I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, thanks. It's what we feel and what we're working on now is the execution of it, and it's all in the execution. So like, what you might imagine the next version of the WWE for esports.
I'm excited
like,
to see what you come
our
up with.
our pathway now is Scott and I are building in a way that we can just show you, and then you would say, holy cow, that's like the next version. You would repeat back to me without me saying it. And once we do that,
I know the general direction that you're going, and I'm just excited to see the actual product.
Yeah, we can't wait. We're grinding. We're hard. We're true startup grinding. I mean, believe me, YCombinator really sort of drills into you the grind. Like that's all 7 days a week of working while we were in there, and that we've carried it forward because, that's kind of not healthy, but it's also kind of like the type of grit you really need to build something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, people see me here, and you met me, but I grind like 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I have so many projects that people don't see on the outside that if you listen closely to my buddies on the show, I've alluded to, but it's not time yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like a lot of us are working on so many things, and one of the things is like when you're playing on YCombinator Live at the Bike, and then people are eating there at the table.
Yeah.
Some of the audience is like, they can't eat somewhere else. I'm like, we're busy people, man. We gotta multitask.
Right, totally. Yeah, of course. It's really convenient when you're playing poker. Also,
Yeah.
the menu's good.
So when it's like interesting that you saw esports from outside, because I was one of the pioneers. I was there in Silicon Valley during the .com boom, right when the internet first started getting commercialized. So I dropped down in the beginning, which I definitely don't regret now because a lot of experiences. And like I knew about Google in 1998 when they had 8 employees. And there's some stuff in is not in documentaries that I know about, like Google.
Yeah.
So back then, you need servers for your website. So most places would buy like 2 of the top of the line servers. So if one goes down, you have a backup. But frequently, they would both go down in that era.
Yeah.
So what Sergey Brin and Larry Page did, they just bought a whole bunch of cheap ones, like 16 of them, I think.
Yeah.
And that had the output power very similar of the 2 like high-end ones.
Sure.
But for all 16 of them to go down,
it's
very,
totally.
very difficult. So a lot of these things where you like look back, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. And there's like countless amounts of problem solving like that.
The thing that I'm very aware and sort of grateful to for people like you and other people who are part of the nascent esports industry, like the whole community and the scene, they solve these insane problems to allow for the existence of something like, Figments now, because like you had to figure out like how do you network together in order to present competitive video games, and then how do you even do that in a format that people want to watch?
Yeah, no, it was like a journey. So for the 2 years I was active, I had the forefront strategy site. I was on the front lines, I won the first StarCraft Brutal World Championship. One of my buddies,
awesome.
Jay Severson, is a co-founder of Chess.com. He actually won the first vanilla StarCraft World Championship.
Cool.
Guillaume Patry, who I'm going to have on the show when he comes back from Canada, comes in LA from Canada, he moved on to Korea to become a professional gamer.
Sure.
At that juncture, it was rough for us because like the infrastructure wasn't what it is today. I had a job at gamers.com to write strategies and I can compete. That year, I made like $50,000.
Yeah.
Like when you're at that age, you're like cool, but that's not like good by any means. But the experience I got, the achievements I got, you can Google them. So it's just like that turned out to be more valuable in the future, which we kind of knew as well. So I tried to take on the .com industry in a more formal manner. I programmed for Alta Vista for a very short time, and then I went back to school and had to pay for school. That's where poker came in.
Yeah, well, nice. The advantage is that you have those abilities, right?
Right. So I just developed a whole bunch of things at the same time, and it's great that I mean, like, one of the things we were discussing before at the bike brewery is, like, when you play poker and it's cash games, you have nothing to show for it except your bank account, your poker tracker, your win rate. And the world doesn't understand what that is. But when now I'm a house player, I do live at the bike, or I play on camera, or I do YouTube, now it's something tangible. And I'm not the type of guy to be like, I'm so great at poker. It's like, I sincerely experience this world. What you see on camera is a tip of the iceberg. And I'm not active in the high stakes scene, so I don't know what's going on. But I lived it and I did it, and as did you. So we know what it takes to get there. So when we see, like, Garrett, Andy, Dan, Zach, our positive battling, oh my God, like, what did you have to go through to, like, get that? Like, we want to do other things, but we appreciate their journey.
Sure, I mean,
Yeah.
respect, right? Like,
Yeah.
because having battled, like,
having battled, exactly.
you understand that the battle is really with yourself,
Yeah.
and your own mind,
Exactly.
and so you can see that you know that in other people. That's your toughest enemy, right? It's you.
Yeah.
It's not your opponents.
Right, and then Garrett, like, about a year ago or something, he was battling, and he just took time out, like 20 minutes, to just talk to me. He was just like, how are you doing? Because he cares about people. Like, a lot of lives are ruined in high stakes poker. Ours, not so much. But I mean, I did go broke that one time, but I've translated that experience into broadcast. And then just Garrett was just like, he was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm much more suited for this. I don't want to go back. I'll play high stakes on camera, but outside, I'm done.
I saw an early screening of a movie actually that's coming out around Christmas, called Uncut Gems by the Safdie brothers.
Okay.
They made good time. Uncut Gems might be the greatest gambling movie I've ever seen, believe it or not, especially if you're a gambler.
Okay.
And it's basically the story of Adam Sandler, who might be up for an Oscar for this. He's that good. Performance of a lifetime. He plays this very idiosyncratic Diamond District, like, jewelry store owner who's in debt and a gambling addict.
Wow.
And he comes into the possession of this, like, mystical gem from Africa that Kevin Garnett, who as a patron of his shop, becomes obsessed with. And it draws Adam Sandler into this story that, if you have experienced the highs and lows of gambling, you will find, like, incredibly darkly funny. It's a black comedy, but other people I went with who aren't as don't have 2 feet into the gambling world felt like it was like the experience of, like, it gave them anxiety. It was like a harrowing roller coaster of a gambling trip.
Yeah.
And it combines these two things together in a really creative way that's incredibly well acted. Idina Menzel is in it, a great cast and masterful filmmaking. I really recommend it. And the reason I bring it up is because you said high stakes poker ruins so many lives, and I feel like this story, Uncut Gems, you could show it to anyone who's battling a problem with gambling addiction and leaks, and it would really resonate with them.
Okay. Well, if I don't see it in the news, definitely let me know where to see it. One thing that I don't get to ask a lot of my guests is, because you do entrepreneurship and high stakes poker, how do you compare the stress levels and challenges? I knew you were going to do that. It's so hard, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're different, but sometimes they're the same. I think you're constantly in a pressure cooker environment in your head. There's a lot of things to consider, a lot of moving pieces, prioritizing the order in which to think about them, and understanding which decisions sort of matter a lot and which should be made quickly because they don't matter that much right now is really important. And I think understanding how to maintain a sense of calm in the face of a lot of volatility is sort of the core of it. And it's super useful in entrepreneurship because there's a lot of volatility, especially in a startup.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, when we were, so Deuces Cracked was one of the world's leading poker training sites. And when Black Friday happened, we lost probably half our customers overnight. And suddenly,
That's brutal.
yeah, it was incredible. And suddenly also our identity, like everybody else, was sort of vacuumed away by the U.S. government in many ways. And so the dealing with that in a business sense was just like really foundational experience for me as an entrepreneur, because I understand that you can lose your business to an event out of your control
Yep.
overnight. And we then ended up selling Deuces Cracked, and we were acquired by Poker Affiliate Solutions. And so we went through the process of getting lean in the face of Black Friday and really taking our company to a point where it would be a valuable asset to another company,
Right.
and exiting. And so that whole process for me was like foundational. And poker, if I wasn't good at poker, I don't think I would be a good entrepreneur. But if I wasn't a good entrepreneur, I don't think I'd be good at poker. So
Yeah,
it's like a thing that sort of mixes together.
I would say I'm not naturally entrepreneurial, but I had good influences like Dennis Fong, Jay Severson. Dennis Fong, first professional gamer, Quake world champion. Jay Severson, co-founder Chess.com, StarCraft world champion. So I just watch them and I just like assimilate, and just like when it's my time, I think people expected me to do it.
Yeah.
So I would say doing a startup and doing your own company entrepreneurship, something's always going wrong.
Oh yeah.
And then one of the things that was hard for me to accept, and I'd quickly accept, is that one, you can't do everything. A lot of things have to go. And another is just like throwing money at the problem is not the solution. And it's not everything sustainable. So you just have to like let things go and only spend, like, when we're playing high stakes poker, we're jamming like 4 figures, betting on a street, maybe even 5 figures. In the startup world, $5.50 is another graphics on Fiverr.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Like it's a completely different ecosystem. The thing that I think, startups are hard. They're like the hardest thing. They're also an addiction. They're also like, I enjoy asking other founders, instead of how's it going, what's your biggest problem?
Right.
What's causing you a nightmare right now?
Yeah.
Because I know that we're going to connect over that.
Right.
And like I know that's what's on your mind, you know?
Yeah.
And you're trying to ignore it and be like, it's great. If you ask an entrepreneur how things are going, they're like, it's good.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's like, I know you're putting on a face.
Right.
You're dealing with something that's agonizing you and keeping you awake at night. But the thing that was really, among many things that was really valuable about YCombinator to us, having had startup experiences in the past, one that went well that could have gone better if not for Black Friday, and then one with the VR startup that was an incredible learning experience, incredible creative experience, but did not have a big outcome or a meaningful impact on the world yet. I mean, it's still going, but we're not involved. The thing that YCombinator really drilled in our heads that we really take to heart is that, especially in early stage startups, maybe in just the whole life of a startup, but especially in early stage startups, the most important 2 things that you can do, and the things that you should really only be doing, are building something that people want, or talking to your users or customers or potential customers or fans or whatever, and trying to understand them. And one of our mentors in YC, Bo Liu, who built Future Advisor, he told this story, made this example, or gave this example, this anecdote that I really think about a lot. He was like, imagine how well you sort of know yourself. And like, people go to therapy in order to learn more about themselves, right? Like we might know ourselves like 50% well. There's probably like 50% about ourselves that we're going to discover more of through the course of our lives. Now imagine a customer. You probably understand them like half of 1% as well as you understand yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you talk to them, you can constantly be understanding them better. Yeah. You can be understanding their pain better, their problem better, and you can actually figure out how to build something that they need and that they want and that they love. And Paul Graham talks a lot about startups, and like, if you're working on a problem, sometimes the actual startup that you end up building is adjacent to the startup that you start with. It's like you're working on a problem, there's something there, there's a big opportunity, but actually working on it will lead you to figuring out an even better opportunity that's right next to it that you can't see.
The Airbnb guys, prime example. What they applied with the YCombinator, I don't remember what the project is, but that's not what Airbnb was. Same thing with Twitch.tv is it was Justin TV, and then evolved.
There was a reality show about Justin Khan,
Yeah.
which is then it became Twitch as it is. So yeah, like plenty of startups go through that journey as well, and even in our batch, like many of our sort of the other co-founders that were in with us, like what they came in with was not the same as what they ended up presenting,
right?
And it might change again for them or for other people, and so I think like if you have a startup idea and you have the sort of determination to go and pursue it, and you are determined, like if you focus on just those two principles, I think they're going to be a good, if I can convey any osmosis wisdom through going through this, it's build something that people want and talk to your customers or potential customers if you don't have any yet.
Right. And that's one of the things with Live at the Bike. Like we get a lot of feedback, we get a lot of conflicting opinions, and Live at the Bike's trying to make a product for like as many people as possible, but there are limitations. And me having a past in online live high stakes, starting from the bottom up, hopefully I'm a good fit to like convey all this stuff. But it's not a perfect product. There's no perfect product. In fact, one of the things that in the beginning of the .com boom, like a lot of people tried to make that perfect product, and it doesn't work like that. Even social media had to be split up. Like at first it was Friendster, and there was MySpace, and it was Facebook, and now it's split into like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Like there's so many things. It's hard to have one thing just encompass everything. Or eSports, you have StarCraft, League of Legends, you have Fortnite, CS:GO, you have Tetris. There's like all these facets. There's no one game that encompasses everything.
Right. In many ways, I mean, like I'm curious to hear what you think of the term esports. In many ways, to me, it seems like esports was like designed as a way to market it in order to increase the money that came in and the accessibility of it to people who weren't part of it.
I talked about this with Ryan Fee, and I think until the titles can stand on its own, like football, baseball, basketball, until it hits that point, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
So League of Legends in this era probably is the first one to, League of Legends and Fortnite. So the chronology was probably like Dennis Fong with Doom 2 and Quake. That was just the entry. Then StarCraft for over a decade was like the game.
Yeah.
And I talked about I mentioned it to like Doug Polk and Ryan Fee. I think StarCraft fell out of favor because whoever's better is just too obvious right from the beginning, even though I would like to say it's probably the most amazing esport when it comes to competition.
Yeah.
Of course it's debatable. Why League of Legends and CS:GO probably overtook StarCraft for the title is if you win, it's your good. If you lose, it's your teammates' fault.
Yeah, right. It has that
Yeah.
that drama that's inherent to team dynamics.
5-on-5s, yeah. And then more people can participate. And Riot did a really good job creating champions that people who may not be skilled can play. So for support, there's Sona. For jungle, there was Warwick. For ADC, there was probably Jinx. For top lanes, probably Garen. For mid, there's like quite a few mid laners like Annie or something that perform very well, but may not be that difficult to perform mechanically.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that helped for League of Legends. Also, not having creep denial, which Dota 2 and Heroes of New Earth had, that helped beginners come in and help what League of Legends is today. I think the franchises need to stay alive for decades because virtual reality might come out, which outdates all the older stuff. So a franchise can stay alive like Super Mario Brothers, Zelda, Final Fantasy. That's the best case scenario. And then when the title's gone on for X decades, then you could be like, this franchise is here to stay. This genre is here to stay.
Do you think that the franchises could merge? Like, because like Super Mario, to use the Mario example, it's a platformer, right? And then you look at like other platformers, Crash Bandicoot, and like Rayman, and like with League of Legends, it's MOBA, and Dota, it's MOBA. Do you think they could all merge together into one thing? That's like League of Legends is they just consolidate all the companies and the publishers that are publishing the other games.
No. So there's definitely different genres that have been basically tested and established. For League of Legends, which is 5 versus 5, for MOBAs, that's one genre. And just like the NBA, the WNBA, that's basketball. You can't combine like basketball, baseball, and football into one game.
Right.
But
What I mean is the different games within the genre. So League of
you
Legends.
mean the IP, the
Yeah,
characters?
the IP, yeah.
So that's what Riot's doing now is they have, and Blizzard figured out as well, is they've built this IP over 3 decades. So they can combine them into like Heroes of the Storm
Sure.
and have the same IP. But the genres itself are basically like Hearthstone Magic. It's the card game genre.
Right.
Real-time strategy, MOBAs, first-person shooters. These are all established, and they will all evolve during time. But
The interesting thing too about this that makes them sort of unique and different than sports, they're video games, right? And so they're evolving so quickly, and you have new
Yep.
formats coming out,
yeah,
and that nobody ever anticipated, like Battle Royale, auto chess now, like
Yeah.
Teamfight every Blizzard, Riot, and
TFT, yeah.
Valve have different auto chess games.
That's the thing is like these genres are relatively established, and they will keep developing, and maybe new genres will be made. But that's kind of what it's like saying when you say somebody's a professional esports player, it's like professional athlete. That's too generic, but there's no heart, there's no attachment.
Right.
Like what sport are you like? What physical sport are you more attached to?
Right, and it's different, I guess, for who you might communicate that to. Same way you might who you might communicate that you're a poker player to. It's like
Yeah.
if I'm, if I am an esports player and that's how I make my living, and I'm telling somebody who's like casual who might have just heard about it on like a late night television, you might be like, yeah, I'm an esports player.
Too far detached.
But if you're talking to somebody in the scene, you're like, I play League of Legends for, 100 Thieves or Team Liquid or Cloud9 or whatever,
Yeah.
and then they get that.
Right. So they're doing a good job of attempting to create team names like Cloud9, Team Solomid, Team Liquid as teams, which we tried to do that 20 years ago, but the infrastructure was just way too weak.
Right.
Now they have these teams just like baseball and football have like teams, but they're trying to create like these umbrellas to put it in, and maybe it works, and they're definitely working at it. I think that it still has a long way to go. I have a general direction that I think instead of forcing the word esports, just be shameless and just say the title.
Sure.
Say League of Legends, say Hearthstone.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
And then, because when you say esports, there's no emotional attachment to that word and the player. But if you say, like I saw you had StarCraft and Magic, once I mention those, memories start flooding.
Right.
You think about your experience. You think you're the fan experience. Like Magic's ever evolving. Everyone thought Magic was going to die like every year for
Sure.
like a while, and the cards just keep appreciating.
I mean, I think the micros never would have been successful if we heard that they were poker players, but we didn't get to see the cards on the table.
Yeah.
We didn't get to understand what it was like to play the situations that they were thinking about. That's why, I brought Ender's Game with me because I'm going to play some cards and read. I like to read while I play sometimes. And Ender's Game, I've been reading because it is sort of maybe the premier novel that exists about the story, the psychological experience. The psychological experience of somebody whose mind is obsessed with games.
So one of the cool things was when Jay and I were on the brewery, he just like plopped this next to him. I'm like, oh, that's one of my favorite books of all time. And it's the story's generically about this young kid who's a super genius that plays games really well, and they want to train him to be a leader in
Intergalactic
battle.
War, with aliens. And
then-
they have to go to battle school,
Yeah.
which is like a school for playing this like zero-G game that, its principles are sort of a metaphor for military strategy.
And no spoilers, but in like a 0G situation, Ender does some things, and I'm like, damn, I wish I thought of that.
Right. And what's incredible is that like the way the book is written is that you sort of learn the game as he learns the game, and you master it as he masters it, and you're in his mind and in his perspective. And like I think that in terms of telling stories about people who play video games, which is something that now I've done, or games that I've really done my whole life, I think that is sort of the premier difference between the good ones and the bad ones. It's that if you can connect to what the psychology of somebody as they're thinking about a game, and you can make that funny or exciting or somewhere in between, romantic even, then you can tell a good story about a game.
And then they have the two sectors because he has an older abusive brother, Peter, I believe,
Right.
and a compassionate older sister, Viola.
Valentine.
Valentine.
Yeah.
Something V.
Yeah.
So he has that dichotomy where he's like fighting internally, but he has these external figures that are pulling him in different directions of how to act.
Exactly. And his internal, that internal
His
conflict
struggle is externalized.
Yeah, it's
with these
externalized and through the games too, unlike
Yeah.
the other people he meets, and that's what makes it a great story. And
at the very end, it's just like, oh my god, I'm gonna start crying. This game.
yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's been a while since I read it. I read it like
Right.
when I was playing internet poker, and I was like, this is one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah.
Also, and now I'm reading it again, and I'm kind of like, is it still going to be? Is it, am I still going to be invested? And so far, so good. I mean, it's really well done so far. And I think it really just it gets into the mind of an interesting. It gets in. I was when I was in Austin. I moved to Austin after Black Friday to finish Bet Race Fold. I was writing a lot of fiction, and the thing that I learned through writing a lot of fiction is that, like, probably and through reading a lot of fiction, is that the most interesting characters and my favorite stories are the ones that get you into the headspace of somebody that thinks about the world in kind of an interesting, intelligent, but also humorous way. And that's not by design, but what we had with the micros in the first episode, you get into Chase's mind.
Yeah.
He's like almost narrating his own poker blog that he's thinking about posting about this hand in the middle of it. And he's talking about, that's why we play, for these moments. And like, in some ways we're parodying a Full Tilt commercial with that, but in other ways we're like, no, we want you to sort of to resonate with his experience, because we know it has elements of everybody's experience when they're at the final table of a tournament or dreaming about that.
And you had a small screenshot of the micros of the Full Tilt cashier.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, memories. When you're doing well, you're always checking it. When you're like getting buried, like I don't even want to look at this thing.
Yeah, I mean, we took a lot of the sound effects in the micros from Full Tilt and PokerStars.
I don't remember it, but
So yeah, I mean, if you played and like those sounds were so, if you were listening with sounds on, they were so. Those sites were really well sound designed.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Like they knew they're gonna make like the sound of chips be like really addicting, and the cashier sound be really addicting.
It's like conditioning. Same thing with like League of Legends, Hearthstone, StarCraft. You start hearing the sounds automatically. An image pops in your head, emotion comes out. That's why using a word like esport, there's no emotion. Mm-hmm. There's no connection. It's like people are even debating whether esports is a sport.
Right.
I'm like, who cares?
Yeah, it's besides the point, right?
They're arguing. They're like being prideful about the argument. So like, oh yeah, esports is not a real sport. It's like
it reminds me of his poker game of skill.
That
would always get a lot of media attention.
Or just like the common thing is just like, oh, Limit has no skill. You're just gonna call her. It's like, or like, oh, no Limit. You could like just avoid good players. It's like. Every game's different. Every game has a lot of skill depth. I've been told, and I don't know this personally, people say Raz has the least amount of skill in all poker. It's like, who cares? When Raz comes up in the mix game, it's time to play,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And just like, yeah, I mean, I feel like people are too, it's almost like narcissistic for people to be like, yeah, esports is not a sport, or like, oh, limit poker is boring and stupid compared to no limit. It's like, that's great. That's your opinion. You're being defensive about your point of view when it doesn't there's all these things exist. Like, in the high stakes live scene, especially, it's not no limit hold'em. Like, mixed games, and there's PLO, there's limit hold'em, there's stud, and no limit barely runs compared to those forms. But if you just watch Live at the Bike, you would think that, oh, no limit hold'em high stakes is still alive, and it's really not. It's a privilege to watch people like Garrett, Andy, Art, Dan, Zach just like battle these things and watch how the game is like so evolved and competitive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, poker is a incredible game, and it's great that. I mean, I found it was like super fun to play Live at the Bike. I mean, because the bicycle
it's a
casino,
whole different dimension.
The bicycle casino, and then Live at the Bike were like legendary sort of touchstones, like I was never a West Coast poker player, so but I'd read stories on 2+2, and it's
Now
just
you're
like
here.
yeah, it was a mythology. So it's really, I mean, I feel like it's in some ways an honor to have played on the show now, and it's super cool.
Great. It was glad to have you. And
yeah, it was
come
fun.
back. Come back again. Tom Martell played in the one before. He's a Magic the Gathering legend.
Tom, I mean, Tom is how I know. I got like
Oh,
I know
really?
all these guys. Yeah, yeah. Tom, because Tom is close with Scott Seaver and Justin Bonomo,
Mhm.
who I'm close with, and yeah, I met. I believe. Yeah, no, I met. So Tom actually, when I was applying to YCombinator, I messaged Scott and I was like, "Do you know anyone in esports? Because I have these questions and
Yeah.
I'm trying to like basically understand the industry as well as I possibly can going into the interview."
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Well, you should talk to Tom." And to Tom, it was probably like a very cryptic phone call, and like because I didn't tell him what we were building, I was just
Yeah.
like asking him questions.
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
And
Yeah.
he was like super knowledgeable and super helpful. And
Right.
then so I met him actually for the first time at Burning Man
Whoa.
this summer.
Okay.
Yeah, because that group of people like Justin
Brilliant minds.
and
Yeah.
Scott Seaver and Xuan Liu, everybody went to Burning Man. And so I went for a couple of days, and we got to talking. We connected there, and then he introduced me to Bryce, and next thing you know, I'm playing in this game. So
Cool.
yeah, it's random, but grateful for it.
So what was yeah, I mean, so you played Magic as well.
Yeah, but not competitively at all.
So it was do you know the cube?
No.
Okay, so it's like one of every card and then it's just like put in and then you just draft it.
Okay.
Anyway, like I told Tom, I was like, actually, I'm credited to pioneering cube, and I didn't even know it
Oh, wow.
because like one of my mentors, Brian Weissman, who's like a Magic Gathering legend, like super old school. He's like, yeah, we say that you pioneered it. And I'm like, cool. I'm writing that
That's
down.
awesome.
Name dropping.
Yeah, dude, you should put that in your Twitter
Oh no,
profile.
I mean, I had it in there. I just have too much to put in. So it's
Right.
like it starts getting excessive at some point.
Yeah,
And so
totally. You gotta figure out like what is relevant now.
it's just like so for games, it's like okay, top is like StarCraft World Champions, obviously a top.
Yeah.
Have #1 ranks, Command and Conquer Warcraft 2. High Legend Hearthstone. League of Legends. I was one win from D4.
Yeah.
I'm just like I have the screenshots, and I'm just like at some point you're like, look, okay, I'm a gamer. I play a ton of stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's just excessive.
right. Yeah,
So-
totally.
And same thing with like Live of the Bike. It's just like like when people view stuff, like case in point, Garrett Adelstein. Not all the poker viewers are watching every single hand, every single Live of the Bike show, but there's several iconic hands that he has that were just like
Yeah,
mind
right,
blown.
totally.
And that's the stuff where when people talk to him or ask Live of the Bike people, they're like, yeah, what's he like or whatever. I'm like, well, we all have these iconic hands that are now on YouTube for all time to like, refer to, and that's like the cool thing.
Well, when you talk about the hero's journey, like Garrett in many ways is like the Live at the Bikes, like Hercules or Luke
Yeah,
Skywalker, and like
absolutely.
these hands are like when he sort of crosses the threshold into the magical world and starts to acquire, like be able to use the Force in these moments, like when Luke lifts the X-wing. That's like a hand that Garrett
Right.
played. I told you about the fold that I watched earlier. Where
Yeah.
he folded the second nuts on the river, or on the turn maybe. Maybe it was the river. I don't remember. But
It
like,
was the river,
Yeah.
but we having played with Garrett, knowing him personally and experienced it, we have a more depth insight. And I don't want to like, and Garrett knows this, I don't want to throw him under the bus. Like, if he comes on the show, which he probably will eventually after I like keep needling him. No, on his own time. Andy's gonna come on the show. A lot of people are gonna come on the show, but we're gonna be protective of him as a person, and like he has what he shows, and he has vocal opinions which he puts out on Twitter, and he has interviews with Joe Ingram. But there's a lot of stuff that's hard to communicate to the public because you had to have like lived the journey to
Yeah,
kind
of course.
understand.
It's like in Star Wars, we've seen Luke Skywalker's journey, but
Yeah.
like
We
we haven't
haven't.
seen all the detail and accumulation of his life, which to many people, for better or for worse, was like him in The Last Jedi is like unrecognizable.
yeah,
Understandable whether or not that was a good storytelling decision for the movies, but like yeah, the point is like when you see somebody and you really idolize or look up to them for the things that you see about them.
There's like so much going on.
Yeah, the reality is different, and it's sort of that. It's they say never meet your heroes. Garrett sounds amazing, but the reason that they say you never want to meet your heroes is because it's about that merging of what you sort of hold on a pedestal, and then what this person is actually just human anyway.
You know what? Like, I found it to be opposite. I like meeting the people in person that I have, even like you, like I've seen your name, like a lot of stuff, and just like meeting in person, we get going. I'm like, I find this highly enjoyable.
Yeah, totally. Likewise.
I've had higher appreciation for Garrett after all this.
Sure.
And, I've played with him at Commerce 10-20 No Limit, like quite a few times, and he's just a really good player.
Yeah.
Now I see this whole dimension, and I'm waiting to see what he does next.
Yeah. So let's tear that down then. Meet your heroes. They're awesome. It's super enjoyable. Like, yeah.
No, I'm on the boat. Like, you should meet your heroes, and you just like, but you should also do your own things, like, and just compare and contrast, and just like there's 7 billion people on this planet. We're just one of them.
Yeah, totally. Everyone's got their own story.
Right, and then case in point, like entrepreneurship legends, Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. When you, like, now that we've done this stuff, when you watch their interviews when they're younger, they're like so cocky and have so much energy.
Yeah, right.
Then when and I didn't notice this before I did entrepreneurship, and then when you hear them when they're 40, they're so weathered, wise, experienced, and more conservative with their choice of words, like, what they're trying to do, and like the stuff in between. And I don't know about you, I can't even imagine what they went through.
Yeah, I mean, wisdom is the result of learning and knowledge and the acquisition of it and the quest, right? You don't get wisdom by sitting at home and reading.
Yeah. So something that now that we've had more experience is like Steve Jobs, you found the company, and then after like a decade, you get booted out of your own company. Like, I don't think I could handle that.
Yeah. And then, and then he built Pixar. And
next,
then
and then
next,
got back
and then
in.
Pixar, and then Pixar sold it for $7.4 billion to Disney, and then brought Apple. And in Bob Iger's memoir, Ride of a Lifetime, which is awesome if you like this stuff, Bob Iger says if Steve survived, he thought that they would combine companies, so Disney and Apple would have became one company.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy, yeah.
Speaking of Disney, I got to drop something. On Disney Plus, National Geographic Brain Games, I'm going to be on one of the episodes as the Poker Pro.
Oh, yeah? That's awesome. When's that going to happen?
I think January of next year.
Definitely tweet that, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
When it comes out, I'm going to make sure everyone knows.
Yeah.
Liv Borie's on there, Igor Kurganov, Alex Zorelli, and myself. And I can't talk about the episode just yet because NDA.
Yeah, sir. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's just like, one of the other dimensions is entering the real world. Like, a lot of the high-stakes players are under the radar. Like, the public doesn't know about them. We may know about them or know people who know about them. And I try to communicate to the public that what you see on camera is a tip of the iceberg. And I took lessons from when I was coming up in around 2004, 2005, the TV players, because I had played a lot of them. And I'm like, they're okay.
Right. Right, but they're on TV there.
Yeah, and then when you become a TV player yourself, and then when you get older and you realize the younger generation's coming up, then you're just like, you just evolve. Like, this is the poker's an industry, which is a subset of the gaming industry. And I showed you the very first PokerCraft where I was saying that, like, when you're younger and you're defining your identity, you got to figure out what you do. And then I think when you get older, like now, when you're talking about the micros in your past, but it's still part of you. Like poker, the micros, YCombinator, Figments, they're all a part of you. You're not, a part of that. So when you look at it that way, you may not work in the micros for 5 years, 10 years, but it's still yours. And it's your choice whether you want to bring it back when the time is right, after Figment sells for $10 billion. Troll, not troll, but...
Well, I mean, if anybody out there, I think, is a Micros fan, and...
Smash that like button, hit subscribe, leave a comment. I'm going to shove all of them his way, and also subscribe to the Micros YouTube channel.
Yeah, and you can
I
definitely
just
tweet at
subscribed.
me. I'll show the tweets to John. I don't think he's on Twitter.
Yeah.
He would really appreciate that, I'm sure.
Oh,
Um,
I'm all for like people building stuff. Like the props are kind of lazy about working on stuff. I needle them all the time. Like Mike Lamas, he's a super funny guy. I'm like, do your stand up, man. Do your stand up comedy.
sure.
Steve, we went to Juilliard. I'm like, do your piano YouTube, man. Nicole Juergens, former Live with YCombinator. She has a poker book coming out. She's one of the female poker players I respect the most. And she may not be elite. I may not be elite, but she successfully navigated a poker career. And I've seen her get berated by guys, and I'm just like, she's just handled it so well over the years, and she's cool in who she is. So there's like a lot of people that have stuff coming out, but it takes persistence, working at day by day, and then
Yeah, for us, I mean, for us, it's like for Scott and I, it's, and the reason, I can't go back to the micros because I feel like we told the story of Chase and Tommy and Rose in a time where it needed to be told.
So I'm like the Rounders fan that's like, when's Rounders 2 coming out?
No, that's cool. I love that. I love that we made it, and there are so fans, and there's so many
Yeah.
fans, and it has stayed so resonant for so many years. That's amazing. I think I love that. But now, like what Scott and I, the story that we want to tell now, and sort of the inspiration for Figments, are the characters that we have in our heads that we talk a lot about, that we're inspired to bring to life. And if you go to the figments.gg, which is on my Twitter,
Shout out.
it's
I'll put a link down there. Guys, check it out. A link
we
below.
have concept art for 3 of our characters, and the one in the center, her name is Vicky, and she was inspired in some ways
By
by who?
Balls?
Balls. No, well, we wanted to. So I was reading a biography of Queen Victoria. At age 18, Queen Victoria basically inherited the British Empire when it ruled over half the known world during the greatest period of technological and social change the world had ever seen, and she reigned for 80 years.
Wow.
That inspired the name, and in terms of the character, we really wanted to tell a story of somebody who was trapped in an impossible situation and had an impossible dream, which when you told me about, when you got the eSports trophy and
Yeah.
your mom saw it and you didn't want to tell her what it was, but you must have been so proud
I
of
was
what you
pretty
did.
crushed. Yeah.
Yeah, but crushed by the inability for her to
Yeah.
be proud of you. That, like, for us, Vicky's story is telling the story of somebody who has that dream, who wants more than nothing to become the best at
She's gonna be the
game
very
that she
best.
plays.
The
She
best
wants to
there
be
ever
the
was.
best. She wants to be the best, but her family and her family circumstances do not allow her to do that. And
Yeah.
it's the story of how she deals with that. And we think and how she comes together with other people in order to basically realize, in some way, the dream, the ambition to live that life. Because we think that is just super exciting and compelling, and to think about. It just inspires us, and we think it can inspire other people. And the challenge for us is in figuring out how do we execute that in this form and in this format that we've invented that is driven by all this cool new technology. And so we think that her story and the story of her friends and her enemies is a story that we need to tell now. We're chasing Tommy and Rose, their
It's in the
story.
past.
Yeah, and that format is in the past for us, and this is something that excites us now.
It's still alive in our hearts.
Maybe it will. Maybe it will come back in the future. Who knows?
We understand, because it's like a lot of things that, like I've been meaning to release a blackjack YouTube video because I know a lot of things that are non-books, and people are like, when's it coming out? I'm like, gotta do this. And you see, like, all this is like an operation, it's a lot of pressure and responsibility. We didn't mention the 2M, 2MM, 2 months to 2 million.
Yep.
You want to talk about that one?
Well, yeah. I mean, so I guess like when I was playing poker, I couldn't turn off my sort of the creator in me, the storyteller in me, and so I always wanted to make so many things. Like, that's the thing, and if I had the opportunity to do that, like you, juggling many projects, I would just juggle many of them, and some of them would come to life. And this one sort of came about because I felt that stories need to be told of the online poker generation.
Yeah.
And through, talking about this with different people who are involved in the entertainment industry, friends, this production company from New York was sent out the summer 2007, my first summer living in Vegas with Brian Roberts, Emil Patel, Ariel Schneller at the time. We were all in a house playing. We had just ascended from 25-50 to playing 200-400 no limit online on full tilt. And we were destroying.
Small stake. The micros, the true micros.
The true micros. We were destroying. And we were all sharing action, living in this house. We were super young. I think we were like 22 or 23. And they showed up with cameras to film like a small piece, and they caught insanity. And they were like, we don't want to make this like a small little piece for,
a segment, yeah.
A segment. We want to pitch it into a reality show because they had these two filmmakers, Terry Sachi and Paul Raitano, who, 10 years later, after 2 months, 2 million, they created Alaskan Bush People, which is a big show on Discovery. And so they were up and coming reality filmmakers. And they basically turned that into a sizzle reel, and then they started shopping around to television networks. And we became very close because this was like a 2-year process. And so they lived in Brooklyn. We were living in New York. They got to know us, and they got to know the online poker world really well through knowing us. And eventually they got money to make a pilot, which was called House of Cards, that we were then, it was up for competition on a couple of networks, and eventually G4 greenlit it to go forward. G4, best known for Ninja Warrior, and to do 10-episode season of what became 2 months, 2 million. And the showrunner of Dog the Bounty Hunter, his name's Alan, he came in to be a showrunner on the show as well. And suddenly we were on our own television show, and Ariel decided, he had other career ambitions, and so Donnie came in to replace him, and he became our fourth. And the rest is sort of reality television show history.
So do you want to tell some trivia that you told me outside, or?
What did I tell you outside?
Hold on.
Yeah, so, it was called House of Cards. We always thought House of Cards was a fine name, a great name for a reality show about this. We were living in a house playing online poker. And then, I remember Alan called me, and he was like, so the show's going to be called 2 months, 2 million. I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, Brian is going to hate that. That is so dumb. What do you mean 2 months, 2 million? Like,
it's 4 people, though.
Yeah, it's 4 people.
Because when I saw the title and I heard you, I was like, that's really ambitious.
Yeah, but also, like, okay, so we're serious high-stakes poker players. If you're a serious high-stakes poker player and you're not involved in a prop bet to earn a certain amount of money, it doesn't make any sense to make that your goal.
Exactly. Like you don't set goals. You just play the best you can and look for the best opportunities and hope for the best.
Yeah, and your goal might be, we're going to play
X hands.
300,000 hands in 2 months or something like that. 2 million hands or something like that, but $2 million. So we thought that was stupid, but they were like, well, the network wants it.
Yeah,
and
you have to for...
They need hooks to follow along week to week. And so finally, we begrudgingly accepted it. And on the first day of filming, we all show up. We had no idea what to expect, but we had a lot of trust in Paul and Terry. Mm-hmm. And like, we'd done the pilot with them. We really liked how it came out. And we knew that they really respected us as sort of experts in the industry, and that they valued our opinion for how to make something that the audience would feel is authentic and that they would enjoy. And so we show up, and on the first day, Donnie plays in like a 50K no limit hold'em event, or maybe a mixed event at the WSOP is a first tournament, and he ships like 560K or something like that.
Sick.
And we're like, boom, a quarter of the way there. And they're like, and he's at the final table. Everyone's really excited, and they couldn't get the cameras into the Rio. The Rio wouldn't allow them to get in, so they were like, sorry guys, we can't count it. And we were like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, you impose this ridiculous goal on us, and then we ship like a quarter of the way there, and you won't count it. But like, to their credit, they're making a television show. They're like, well, we can't get footage. How the hell are we going to explain?
Right.
We're going to set up the premise, introduce you guys as characters in 22 minutes or whatever, and then also Donnie Binks this and like off screen. Like
Yeah.
nobody's gonna go for that.
Right.
So again, we're like,
People need to
fuck.
see like Live the Bike. Seeing is believing.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with like a lot of the stuff I say on there. Like I was on How I Met Your Mother for 2 episodes.
Oh, awesome.
Literally, the
What are you
chat's
doing?
like, okay, well, one of my screenwriting mentors was a co-executive producer, and
Yeah.
he offered a long time ago. So he knew I was a big fan, and I was like, God, like and then finally I was like ready to go on because it was like a big thing for me,
Yeah.
and I wanted it to like I don't know, mentally be ready.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. It sounds kind of weird.
What did you do on the show?
I'm just an extra.
Yeah.
But like I'm literally in 40% of the episode.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, season 6.
Were you at the bar?
Yeah,
or,
I was
yeah.
at McLaren's.
Yeah. I mean, I watched So How I Met Your Mother. Like Chuck, who we lived together in that first apartment in Tribeca when I was grinding online poker, we would watch How I Met Your Mother every day. It was like amazing. It
I
was
know.
like
I love the show. And
I
then-
feel like it defined our experience
Yeah.
as young people living in
I
Manhattan.
agree. Oh, okay. I meant like even the generation
Oh,
of
yeah,
dating,
totally.
of just dating, even though I'm in LA and it was in Manhattan.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that generation, that age demographic is kind of like a very relatable journey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like when I said it, the chat's just like some people in the chat are like, oh, BS, and then they open up Netflix and
Yeah,
just
they
goes
found
fast.
it.
I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, by now, I mean, I could bluff the audience, but I would just say
Yeah.
I'm bluffing like very quickly after. Or if I say, no, really, like I'm the first registered user of chess.com.
Booyah.
And people are like, oh, come on. But by now they're like, oh, if he says it, it's got to be
Right,
true.
it's got to be true. He's got all these accolades, and like they're all true.
Yeah, just like go Google it.
Yeah, I mean,
That one you can't Google, but the thing is, it's not like chess.com started and I rushed in on I was the first user. Jay Severson was the CTO. And he's like, Wayne, can you test this for me?
Yeah,
So I was like, okay. I was like, oh, Fob Shady.
that's the only thing I got is I high-fived J.K. Rowling once.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
How's that?
It was pretty cool.
J.K. Rowling, just remember this. Shout out.
Right.
Jay Rosenkrantz.
I hope to meet you again one day and recount this story.
You will, and you will.
She sat on a giant throne in Carnegie Hall. My brother and I had won tickets to listen to her read from the Deathly Hallows, and that was
sick.
the first time she told the world that Dumbledore was actually gay. It got all this media attention. We were there, and then we
Yeah.
high-fived her. So that was a monumental event in the history of the two brothers. Yeah. Speaking of brothers, what's your anime sort of knowledge?
Very low.
Okay, so you haven't
But-
seen a lot of it.
No, but hold on. I have a prop.
Okay. Death Note. Oh my God. Do I need to look? Do I want to look and see whose names are written?
There's
in
nothing
this?
in there. I have a little joke
I
thing.
don't even want to open it in
No,
case
there's
there are
nothing
names in there.
I was just joking, and I was like, I filmed myself like doing this, but I have
Yeah.
nothing in my hands.
Right.
I was
Yeah,
like-
that's cool.
But
That's funny.
guys,
Great
if you,
show.
If you want to get introduced to anime,
Don't watch the movie. Right on
yeah,
Netflix.
no American movie, no Japanese movie. Watch the anime.
That's one of the greats.
Even English dub is okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
this is my all-time favorite, and like a lot of the ones like Spirited Away or Princess Mononoke, Ninja Scroll, like I watch it just to get the experience, but I
Sure.
couldn't feel anything until this.
Yeah. Yeah.
This I'm just like,
Yeah, I mean
Light.
that's definitely one of the touchstones.
Yeah.
I was gonna bring up as I was talking about my brother. He's got a tattoo of the Philosopher's Stone
Oh.
right here from Full Metal Alchemist, and to us that's like our story. Edward and Alphonse Elric, the tale of the two brothers whose father leaves them. He was a famous alchemist, and their mother gets sick and passes away, and the older brother becomes obsessed with the idea that you can use alchemy to bring someone back to life. And in doing so, and attempting this ritual, his younger brother, when they're kids, they commit an inviolable taboo in alchemy, which is you cannot bring someone back to life. And as a result of this, the older brother loses his arm and his leg, and the younger brother loses his whole body. And before he loses his younger brother forever, he bonds his soul to a suit of armor on the wall, and the two of them are basically the story is of their journey to find the Philosopher's Stone in order to restore them back to full humanity. And that is an incredible anime series. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the one, but for us, we're always like, okay, we're on this journey to
Right.
find the Philosopher's Stone. And the great thing about that story is that like they learn that the object of the quest is not necessarily the thing that
The
brings their
goal.
life
Yeah.
meaning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The journey.
I find that anime series, like the good ones, are some of actually the greatest stories. Like Death Note, right? Like
Yeah.
Death Note's incredible.
You
and
want
you
to
don't.
pitch the audience?
Oh, Death Note. Well, Death Note is a story of this. What is? He's kind of like a high school.
He's a high school genius
Right.
that's kind of like bored because he masters everything.
Right.
And then there's a Shinigami.
Shinigami is like
Death,
it's like a Japanese god.
Death Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Death Spirit. So he's bored in the Death world. They have these Death Notes where you write their name and they die.
Right.
And
And
you
they
can-
die how you describe it, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
if you don't describe it, then they die through a heart attack.
Through a heart attack.
Yeah.
And the great thing about anime is that they like have this screen where it's like the rules,
Yeah.
like of these crazy concepts.
Yeah.
And yeah, he loses the Death Note by accident, right?
No, Ryuk, the Death Spirit, he's like, I'm bored. And he
Oh, he
drops it in
drops
front
it.
of Light, and Light's like reading. If you write somebody's name, they die. He's like, what the hell is this? And, like,
Right.
normal human being. And then he just, like, gets it back. And then this, like, woman's being, like, assaulted. And so in the Death Note, you have to write their name, and you have to think about that person. So as this woman's being assaulted, I guess the name of one of the assaulters said, so he just writes his name,
Right.
and the guy dies.
Right.
And he's like, this might be a coincidence.
Right. And then he begins to write in the Death Note, and his father is the head of the police force. And
Yeah, so he writes a note, the names of criminals.
Right.
Because, kill evil.
Right. And in many ways, he's like a similar kind of anti-hero to, I feel like, Walter White and Dexter.
Yeah.
In that, like, you're in his perspective, and he goes, he's the morality of this is really well explored, and the core relationship in Death Note is between him and L, who
Yeah.
is a super genius, is an opposing force that is assigned to basically investigate who's killing these criminals, right?
Right. And just like L's philosophy is that murder is just wrong, period. And Light philosophy is that there's a lot of evil in this world, and the world would be a better place without evil.
Right, the end justify the means. Yeah.
And then I would encourage you guys to watch
Just-
at least
yeah.
the pilot. At least
I
the
would
pilot on
watch
Netflix.
Death Note. I mean, if you like good stories,
Yeah.
like watch Death Note. I mean, that's the thing about anime, and the storytelling is so incredibly well done. All the plot lines sort of converge to make really give the themes incredible meaning and really connect to your heart.
Yeah, because it's animation, they could go over the top, and once you have that suspension of disbelief, then you could just follow this like metaphorical, theoretical, moral journey, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't see that often in American television, at least not in animated television, especially not these high concept, crazy premises, right? Like,
I think it's cultural differences, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like, and just Marvel and DC in general. They tell stories that we can't necessarily, like, experience because we don't have superpowers. And I think, like, it's, like, that's the thing about, like, watching and actually being there. Like, I don't know about you, but you probably feel the same. Like, playing against Garrett Adelstein is scary. I don't want to play against them, but damn, I like watching it.
yeah, totally. Right.
Same thing with these movies. Like, a lot of these physical feats are when they're in danger.
Yeah.
We're old enough where we've been in danger before,
Right.
so we're like, yeah, I don't want to really do this.
Yeah,
but when
yeah.
you watch, you're like, oh, damn, So,
Yeah, totally. Like you wanna just step outside yourself
yeah,
and forget
just
your
like,
life and
just be like, I would do this. I believe in this philosophy, and so on.
right. And you want to identify and you want to be surprised and you want to connect.
Yeah. The other thing about, like, when you mentioned you don't want to meet your heroes or something, I think, like, part of it's, like, how much of your heroes or who you're looking up to, how much of their journey do you appreciate? Because it's like, yeah, like, fans of Garrett can, like, meet Garrett and be like, oh, I'm your fan, but they don't understand the journey. But if they actually played poker, try to be a professional poker player, studied, like, exploitative GTO, then, we probably haven't spent as much time as he has, but we know the path that he's gone, how much effort he's put in, and, it's just like we have an appreciation for it.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I'm like, I want to see what he's doing.
Yeah,
like
totally.
play and decisions in life.
Yeah, I feel that way about like writers and filmmakers.
Yeah,
Like
no, exactly.
I want to see Christopher Nolan's next movie,
Right.
like Tenet. I want to see, like I just saw Knives Out, like because I've been a fan of Ryan Johnson for a long time.
Is it Rian Johnson?
Ryan.
Ryan. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's finish up the 2 months to 2 million story.
Yeah. Well,
You just grinded it up and ended up. What was the ending total?
I think it's like 620 or 676,000, something like that. Like we didn't make it.
Split to four-way. I mean, between four people, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't like we were all chopping action. Some of us had more of it, some of us had less of it, but that was the cumulative of the team.
Sure, but yeah, I'm just like, even in the best of eras, I mean, it's a good amount, but 2 million, like 500K in 2 months, even if you had the expected value to get that total, there's like no guarantee you're going to hit that
Right.
because of variance.
Yeah, but that's something that, like, they're making. I guess it relates to what you're talking about with your show. They're making reality television for the masses, and so
Yeah.
like to the masses, they're like, oh, they didn't hit it. It's still a lot of money though.
Yeah.
But to us, it's like we look at it completely differently, and the core poker audience will look at it completely differently. Like that perspective on it is just, it's a smaller subset of the whole audience, which
Right.
just wants to, like, whole audience is like. So I was living in Austin, Texas. We moved to Austin. I'm out of this. Austin's got these great outdoor bars with long picnic tables. You can bring your dog. We're out of this bar, and I see the other end of the table. There's kind of like this couple, this guy and this girl, and they're kind of staring at me, and like I kind of like
They
look
know
back,
you.
and I'm like. And I sort of make eye contact. They're kind of elbowing each other, and then the guy sort of like, reaches forward and he goes, "Do I know you?" And I'm like, "Oh, from poker." And then the girl sort of blurts out,
knew it!
"It's that nerd on TV!" and I'm like, "Oh," they're like, "Oh my God, we just binge watched your show on Netflix."
Awesome,
like that, yeah. And so like, to many people, we're just like these four poker nerds who. Lived in Vegas in this hyper stylized televised life or whatever. So yeah, it was surreal back then. Now I'm used to it, and I'm glad it exists and that we
Sure,
did it.
yeah.
Because it represents this moment in time at the peak, right? Like it was playing super high stakes no limit, super young. I think it was 25, and like
That's the age to do it. When you
Yeah.
get older, it gets a lot tougher.
yeah, totally, and you care about other things when you're older. You care about like nothing except playing on the
Yeah.
poker or video games, and that's it. And I was actually at a like a eSports party in maybe it was around TwitchCon this year, and I remember looking around, and I think there were a bunch of like superstar player influencers who were there, and they were all in a circle, and then there were the adults that were sort of around them, and it reminded me a lot of the internet poker scene because it was like you have the kids who are making all the money,
Right.
all they care about is like playing games and making money
Yeah.
and partying, and then you have the adults who are
Who
like,
just want to watch.
well, yeah, they want to watch, but they're also like, oh my God, these kids are making a lot of money.
Yeah.
I want to make money off them too, like in some
Right.
way. Like I see an opportunity,
Right.
and it reminded me of that time in our life. Like we had these handlers on the set of 2 months, 2 million. We had one person, Jill, who like she almost became part of the family in a way, but like her job on 2 months, 2 million was to make sure that we were awake in the morning and like on time to go
Right,
to
yeah.
where we needed to be. And poker players, young poker players,
Oh.
they're not going to wake up.
Yeah.
Like Emil, he wins the master bedroom. You see it on television. Like we play this like game of poker to figure out who gets which bedroom. And Emil is like a notorious oversleeper, never wakes up before like 1 p.m. or something like that. And so they actually had to he double locked himself in because they had this hallway that's part of the master bedroom suite that you could lock the outside and then you could lock the bedroom door too. And he wasn't waking up and we had to be somewhere that we couldn't reschedule. Bam, they actually drilled out the locks in the door to wake him up because they needed to get him out somehow. There's no other way in.
Hopefully it was decent.
Yeah, well, I mean, he all of us had a lot of fun on that show. I remember the moment when we actually had G4 playing on the main TV in the living room, and then we heard the da-da-da, the sort of James Bond type of 2MM theme come in, and then we're like, these former high school math whizzes have one summer to, and Donnie and I lock eyes. We're like, what? We all run to the couch, and it's the first commercial for the show.
Oh, okay.
And it was just
cool.
A crazy moment.
Right.
Yeah, another moment was when they put up the website for the first time. We all came home just after partying at some club at the Bellagio and half drunkenly sit down and are seeing ourselves presented as cast members on this thing. So the process of making it was really fun and surreal. And then I'm glad people like it now, and still people want.
And you like how I nitpick? You're like, I'm 2 months at 2 million. That's really hard to do, even in optimal game conditions.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm looking at the practical point of view.
I think in some ways, I mean, I imagine this is similar to how TV poker players feel about being on television. I felt like I was playing a version of myself because I knew we're making a television show, and so that you want to be entertaining, and you want to be on, and we all feel when it's come up again in conversation, we wanted to do another season. We thought we would be able to make a better show,
right? Of course,
because we had figured out what the show was by the end of it.
Yeah. People ask me that all the time about people on here or just how good of a player Doug Polk is, and I play with Phil Hellmuth, Antonio Sfindiari, Phil Locke, and I'm most of them are the same person. It's just that on camera they 5x, 10x their personality.
Sure.
I played 100 or 200 with Hellmuth, and then he limped 7-handed ace-7 off.
I love that you remember this, yeah.
No, I do, because I've played with him so few times. Actually, I talked with him a few months ago. I don't think I doubt he remembers me. And then somebody raised with ace-jack, and then he calls and flops ace-high, and he pays off all 3 streets, and Helmut's just oh, well, that's the same person. Right. But really, actually, he's a nice guy, and I've mentioned on broadcast, I think, I don't remember whose book kind of says that he's good against bad players, but bad against good players, or not as good against good players. And I kind of figured it out, because I used to think oh, this guy is just not good because he does all these weird things. But, we've played tournaments. It's really hard to win those things, even if you run good. So if you can antagonize your opponent like Hellmuth does to dump off chips, that's just an extra bonus on top of having more winners.
Yeah.
So some stuff like that, when you become more experienced players, oh, that's why it works. And then you see why they've been why Hellmuth has the most bracelets, World Series of Post bracelets, probably one of the reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, his cash game is not something to write home about, but his tournament game probably is.
Yeah.
Extremely impressive.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think probably an underrated element. I mean, because when you bring up, I think probably an underrated element of Phil Hellmuth, being an armchair quarterback. This is just my perspective on it. Sure. I don't know him. I've never played with him. But probably an underrated element is his mastery of understanding how other people see him, and his ability to take advantage of that.
I totally agree. Yeah.
I think Vanessa Selps is the reason she succeeded so much and crushed so much in tournaments is that she understood how all these different kinds of players viewed her and wanted to play against her, and she massively exploited that.
Right. And a lot of the videos on her that are public are her getting outplayed, which may or may not be in her favor to produce that image.
Well, I mean, yeah, those are knowing Vanessa really well, those are hilarious, videos, but they don't represent. Just like you only know
Yeah, it's
the
just a
elements
small.
of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not. She's just one of the smartest, like kindest, biggest hearted people that I know, who also is one of the most competitive at games that out of anyone I've ever met.
Do you think she and Doug Polk are twins
No,
or related?
no,
She's just same hairdo.
no. I mean, she's way better looking than Doug Polk.
Oh!
I'm just kidding, Doug. You're both incredible looking
Yeah,
people.
Doug, don't fire shots. Oh my God, we cry mercy. We're waving the white flag right now.
No, I've never met Doug Polk, but anyone who is really into poker training, a lot of respect for that type of person.
I mean, I've talked to him, met him a couple of times. We had lunch at Brazilian barbecue once, and like, I was expecting somebody abrasive, and I'm like, this guy's a nice guy. What the hell's going on?
Sure, yeah. Doug, I think Doug came about after I was out of poker, basically. So I don't know. I know he's a thing. He's sort of his own myth in the world, but I don't really know his story like I know the people I came up with. So
yeah, no, that's the generational thing. So what happened actually in 2+2? I don't know the year, like 2013 or 14. He said, "I'm broke. I can't beat 10 cent, 20 cent, blah," and and then he just became a crusher.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, and then
that's amazing.
And then in his spree to play on camera to promote his skill, declare he was in his era the best heads-up player of all time, and to promote upswing poker, he came on Live the Bike. There was Doug Polk week. I played him heads up, and
nice.
like, in a live setting, I'll play like 99% of the field, and then when he says this, I'm like, well, I'm sure he's better than me, but how much am I really losing
Sure.
in EV? And then like I want to learn, what's going on. So, and it's exhibition, right? So just play for camera, and I learned a lot just playing with them. Just like his the next guy doing the PLO training, Dylan Weissman. Like I just did a bunch of hands. He played on Live with the Bike 2 years ago during Joeing Room Week, and I remember him because I'm just like the way he talked, the way he acted, and yeah, he didn't play perfect, and I had said that in the analysis, but I'm just like, you know who to look out for, and you know who knows like a ton of stuff.
Sure.
So shout out to them, and we went to Joe Stapleton's Laugh Factory bit.
Yep.
And you were like, Joe Stapleton had a bunch of people he was going to invite in, but the thing was screwed up, and you were stuck outside, and you texted me, you were like, it's a 4 hour to get in, but you got in.
We got in, yeah.
Gut shot.
We were actually, it's funny, we were chatting up these other guys who Joe also invited, who made the joke that we could go play in this tournament nearby, so there were poker fans or whatever, poker players, and we're just like, we're just going to leave. Like, we're going to make the most of the night, go someplace else. And we were like one step out the door when one of those poker guys saw the manager and was like,
do you know who this is? He made the micros.
No, well, we just overheard she was going to try to get everybody in, and she did. So we were able to watch from the balcony.
All right, shout out, yeah.
David Spade was there. I didn't know that. David Spade was there. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was cool. So I had a good time there. I thought this stuff was funny, but man, comedy's gotten dark over the last couple of years.
I noticed that.
I sent a message to Joe Stapleton, but guys, he's going to be in Laugh Factory from time to time, and he has a Vegas gig, so go check him out. And yeah, dark.
Yeah, I mean, it was very funny though. So,
yeah, it was very funny.
You know what I loved? Joe's stuff was great. I actually missed the first part of it, so I didn't get his whole set. But he was a host, and then what I loved about David Spade's set though is like his anecdote about McDonald's. I don't know if you remember this, but he was like, I go into McDonald's, and he makes eye contact with us. He's like, oh yeah, I go in too, and he I'm not gonna be able to tell it, but his whole sort of bit of making eye contact with the cashier when he goes in, and the cashier clearly knowing, man, it's a celebrity,
right.
And then him just like messing with them, and enjoying that. I thought was hilarious.
I remember more of his like traffic bit.
Oh yeah.
People are cutting in.
Yeah,
I don't want to spoil it because like comedians work really hard for this gig, so Joe Stapleton's bit was porn related. That's clickbait. Go to his show and find out
Go
what
to
it
his
is.
show, Joe Stapleton.
Shout out to Joe Stapleton.
He is on an upward trajectory. Like, he's going to be a big comedian.
Yeah, we're all supporting him. We're like, Joe Mama.
He's got Joe Mama.
No, but in all seriousness, Joe Stapleton played on Live with the Bike. He commentated when you guys were playing.
Yeah, I'd known of Joe
Yeah.
for, I feel like he went on a parallel career during the poker boom. So I'd known of him,
Right.
but I was never like a podcast listener. But I knew of Poker Road. I never watched really a lot of televised poker, so none of the PokerStar stuff. So I just knew he was a thing, a commodity, and really successful and entertaining. But like actually, Live at the Bike was the first time we ever talked.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Just
I'm
like
glad I
Live
got
at the
to see
Bike's
the show.
first time we ever talked.
Yeah, that's true.
No, we had an email introduction from Schwan Liu, and then
Right.
Same thing with Tom Martelli, an email introduction. But just like, and that's the thing about the poker world, entrepreneurship world, or just the world in general. Is like, even if you don't know the person, you might know the credits, and you know mutual people, and that's how you kind of know people are like more legit. It's kind of like a letter of recommendation, and especially with Jay doing the micros, doing the YCombinator, name dropping so many people, deuces cracked. It's just like, you know the person, then you meet them, and I don't know. I always like getting to know people. I'm never the type to like, I don't want to meet my heroes. I want to meet Chris Nolan one of these days.
Yeah, that would be
Jonathan
amazing.
Nolan and James Cameron, all of them. Like, and even different industries. It's a lot of what this talk show is. It's like, it's people who played on the show who love poker, obviously. Or maybe we don't love poker, but I'm just kidding. But just poker pro. It's not just poker pros. It's like people who love poker, like Julie Orn, Phil Stark, Dane Abrams. They're in the Hollywood world, so we get to see a little bit inside scoop and how it relates to here. I'm gonna have James Woods on here, and Barry Greenstein, Adam Levy, Ruthless, Joe Stapleton. Have all these people and just be like how poker is within their lives, not
Sure.
how they are within poker.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
It's a
I mean,
different-
everybody has a complicated relationship with poker, but I think everybody who's
Sure.
probably coming on your show loves poker.
Yeah.
What, like, love, like, passionate love versus, like,
Like Love It 3000? Oh!
yeah, like, I love you 3000 versus just, like, I love you sort of, we've been married for 40 years and I know all of your flaws and I kind of hate you half the time, but I accept you and embrace you as part of my existence.
That's interesting. No, I know what you're going at, but
I think everybody who plays it loves it in some way.
right.
Whether it's the thrill of getting all in and seeing what happens, or the thrill of just having the nuts and having somebody bet half their stack into you.
And all these like alternative games, like No Limit Hold'em is the gateway drug that you see on television and
Sure.
you try to get into. But we've done the high stakes No Limit Hold'em bit. It's not the game that I dislike. I dislike the social aspect of high stakes No Limit Hold'em, and that's what I shy away from. There's so much bad blood, and I'm now a host of the Live at the Bike games. Unless it's like small stakes, I really don't play with those guys because it's just a very uncomfortable feeling. Like
Interesting.
it exponentially gets more and more if like I get stacked X times, they get stacked X times. If I get stacked X times, I'm supposed to brush it off, which it's still money. Like, you know how it is. Even if you play well, it's still hard to win. And that's something that it's just a different dimension to poker and No Limit Hold'em especially. It's like PLO, you kind of more accept that there's going to be bigger variance, and you have the main hand, I have the draw, and you get it in. No Limit Hold'em, when somebody gets stacked, like, man, I think two's the limit. By the time somebody gets stacked a third time, it's just not fun anymore. Or
I actually,
the
I mean,
social
in
dynamic.
my old age now, I usually will leave after I lose 3 buy-ins. Like,
So yeah, the third buy-in's kind of the threshold when
Yeah.
things kind of get like a little uncomfortable.
well, it's not. It's for me. It's not uncomfortable. It's just like I don't feel like playing anymore. Like,
But yeah, I mean that's the thing. In PLO, it's accepted to like burn through more buy-ins, or when it's a fixed limit structure, you can get buried like how much, and you're still psychologically probably okay.
yeah. I
don't
mean,
know.
I don't know.
It's-
I feel. I guess I haven't played super high for a while, but like I was definitely dusting off like 15 buy-ins sometimes
Yeah.
and no limit cash and just
Yeah.
like fine. Uh, although you'd probably argue watching it's like I'm on crazy tilt to be stuck 15 buy-ins, but like sometimes stuff happens, right? Variance can happen even at no limit. It's hard
Yeah.
to claw back from because it doesn't happen as often,
Right.
but I actually found the social elements of poker to be a little bit different. There's certainly live poker if you're in that scene. There's
A lot of politics.
there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of sort of the vices and the
Oh, yeah.
toxicity of just living in the gambling world is
Right.
around you, which adds to it. In internet poker, it's like a
You can
camaraderie.
fade it.
People, people
Yeah.
travel around, and you can kind of build your own
Network.
network and like cave almost. Like you can insulate yourself from the rest of the world, and so the some of my best friends in the whole world were people that were part of that. And so that when people are like, do you miss poker? The two things that I miss are the constant competing at a game and then the people. Like I miss my friends from that world.
I don't miss grinding high stakes. And like after I do all this other stuff and I have, other projects, I'm like, you know what? And I talked this with the Bryce Yockey podcasts and Sean Snyder, where like we used to just like battle, but there's always higher stakes. There's always a better player.
Sure.
At some point, you gotta tell yourself where you belong in this world, or how poker is a part of you. Don't let it like overtake you, and don't run your head into the Kanish's line. Maybe this is a game that can be beat.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I mean, I felt like when Black Friday happened, all my friends were leaving the country.
To play.
Yeah, to play. I mean, I had that option, and the thing that I thought a lot about was that Ryan and Ryan really, I was producing it, but Ryan was really the editor. He ended up he was on the third cut of the movie of Bet Raise Fold, and we were trying to get into Sundance with a documentary about internet poker subculture. We follow these three characters:
Yeah.
Bet Raise Fold, the story of online poker, and then Black Friday happened, and we had access to everyone in the industry, and we were following players whose lives were really transformed by this, and so we
Right.
were able to actually. We knew that we had to film that.
Yeah.
We didn't know how we would use it in the movie, and so figuring out how to make a movie out of that was what I focused on, and the thought in my mind was like a really massive inflection point, because I was like, oh, I achieved more in poker already than I ever actually imagined for myself.
Yeah.
And there's this opportunity to actually now tell that story in a massive way. So I want to focus on that. That seems right. It doesn't seem to make sense to keep playing poker, even though I could keep making a lot of money doing it at the time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of poker players that I'm friends with or have been friends with kind of get trapped in what you said about I can always go higher. I can keep
the vortex.
Yeah, they're in this existential vortex where they want to do something else, but they
can't. They have to make money.
Right, they have to make money, but they really, really don't. Because if you think about it, okay, we made this virtual reality game in 2.5 years. None of us, the founders, had programming or 3D animation or game engine experience. I ended up leading the programming team to make this game. It's not a perfect game, but we learned how to make an incredibly complex computer game in which I ended up coding 75% of the mechanics in the game,
Yeah.
just out of necessity. Incredibly steep learning curve, but we taught ourselves how to do this just by
Right.
doing it. And so if you think about things that are much less hard than that,
Yeah.
that could lead to making a lot of money and having a big career,
Yeah.
it actually doesn't take that much time to do it. So if you were to quit poker cold turkey right now, and then you were to go join Lambda School, which is a YC company that basically they pay for your programming education, and then you just pay them back when you get a job.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take you that long to retrain yourself.
I'm not so keen on this. It's just you're a very smart guy, but selling that is probably. I mean, Andrew Yang mentions that it's just you can't sell that anybody can be a programmer.
Oh, I don't know that
Yeah.
anybody can be a programmer. I don't know that programming is the best thing for everybody, but like
Yeah.
anybody can be what they are, what their
Sure.
curiosity drives them to be.
Yeah, their intellectual curiosity and the
And the
talents.
problem with poker players is that they want to do something and it's not clear that the thing they know how to do is poker, and so they
Right.
never sort of can imagine what else they could do.
Yeah.
But what was sort of my argument is that if you just quit and then you start the process of trying to imagine,
Yeah.
you might be able to imagine something, because actually doing it is not that hard and it won't take you that long to
Sure.
actually get in
Yeah.
if you're thinking about it all the time,
Right.
the same way you think about playing poker.
Yeah. No, I that part I agree. Yeah, the programming thing is because like I've tried to become a programmer, and it's like if I wasn't raised in Silicon Valley, it might have been a possibility, but there's just too many like 10x programmers,
Sure.
2x programmers. And I got into UC San Diego as programming, but I just didn't have the heart to finish. Plus,
Yeah.
online poker,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, would I have learned how to program games if I wasn't obsessed with the idea of making a virtual reality
You had
adventure game?
You had a motivation.
I had problems that needed to be solved. Like,
Yeah.
this character is not. How do you make him say something funny?
Yeah.
Like, you need to like learn how to do that. And
Right.
so, there was a vision for where it was going. It wasn't like I'm gonna learn to be a programmer to get a job.
Yeah.
It's like I have to.
It's different.
Yeah, it's a tool to solve the problem. I don't know how to use the tool.
I mean, I would have to say the same thing with dealing with Live at the Bike. A lot of the stuff that I have to deal with is out of necessity and out of a goal, not like,
Yeah, I mean,
oh,
did
wanted
you
to do
set
this.
up this whole situation?
No, this is all Brian.
Oh,
Brian
wow, yeah.
Arakaki. Shout out to Brian Arakaki, the director. Yeah, and just like small adjustments, and we're gonna improve this. It's just like this is just the first iteration where the original Monday show I was like pitching in, and then this is its own entity,
Yeah.
and hopefully I want this to be a continual thing. But I was gonna redo everything at probably like half a year or a year mark, and now that I've gotten my stride, and yeah,
Yeah, a lot of people don't appreciate this, but I sent Scott, my brother, sort of a couple photos of the setup, because it's actually like there's 2 light panels, there's
Yeah.
a camera, there's these great broadcaster headphones,
Yeah.
there's a whole sound system. It's a good setup, like, and it's
and
impressive.
somebody built that wall. There's things behind there.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, it's well done. They don't, obviously the magic of what happens off camera
Yeah.
is the audience doesn't need to see
yeah.
it and doesn't see it, but
Sure.
it's
It's
yeah.
2019. They should get a little
some
glimpse.
yeah, totally. Well, yeah, somebody figured this out, right?
Right.
Like in order to create this thing. So
Yeah.
that's what's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then when you actually do entrepreneurship or you do film, you have so much higher appreciation for the process, and you don't rip on even bad films because you're like,
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
they put their heart and soul into this. Give them an A+ for effort.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you can just appreciate it on many other levels other than the surface level, which makes it more enjoyable for you, I think.
Yeah, and it's just the process. Same thing with like the grinders, or when we're talking about like Garrett Adelstein's process, or it's like, man, props to you for taking it this far.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go through your hands on the esports night, and
Okay.
when I was going through them, I was like, this is cool because it really showcases. Oops. I hope there aren't tech difficulties. Oh, there we go. So this is esports night, set up by Adam Levy. Shout out to him. So one of the first, I knew your background too, but just watching you play definitely came from the school of like maneuvering with any 2 cards. That's something that I feel like is a little bit lost in this era. So shout out to Israeli Ron Queen Deuce.
This was the most fun, interesting hand. So earlier,
You raise in the hijack. Queen Deuce. Is that suited or off? Looks like it's
Suited.
off. It's suited.
yeah.
Chicken. No, just kidding. I barely even do the offsuit. And Taffa was going to 3-bet you.
Right, so he had 3-bet earlier off camera and showed something similar to this, like ace-4 type situation. So I knew this was in his wheelhouse, and also the way the game was playing, I suspected like if he had like aces, kings, something like that, he might just flat because there's a few people behind him, like Chopper, like Bryce, that are a little bit more apt, especially Bryce in the blinds, to 3-bet and squeeze. And so basically I had a pretty good sense that Tafo was pretty light. I knew that Chopper's range of calling the 3-bet is like any two playable cards. And having played with him before and tonight, I knew that Bryce in his spot is going to 4-bet with any super strong hand, just having played with him.
You just go over the top of like them, like they're some freaking tourists.
Well, it's just a great spot to do this because it's an impossible situation unless
Tafo has a real hand.
Yeah, unless Tafo has a real hand, and I'm getting a really like good price on my 4-bet to win the pot and the money in the pot right now.
Yeah.
And I know that even if Chopper or Bryce have an actual hand, I know that they're really not going to be able to do much because if they call, I'm going to win on so many different flops against their range. And if they come over the top, they really have to just be like kind of trying to out-level me.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty saucy play to do that. So I felt pretty good about making this move here.
And then...
Although arguably the queen deuce suited open is like under the gun or on the +1 wherever I am is like pretty
standard,
really loose. But I mean, live poker is slow.
Standard.
Live poker is slow, and I'm on stream. So
of course, yeah. No, I mentioned that like we play looser on stream, and we're just like messing around. It's not like we're trying to lose, but we are trying to find spots that we could take advantage of people who may not be as aware that.
Well, the thing is now, I think like
we're having fun.
I think like most of the people in this game by this point, because I played it a couple times, like know that I came from the poker world.
Yeah.
And so, but I think having played this and now having everyone seen this hand, they're like, oh, Jay is actually really is capable of anything. So
sure.
I think I have to keep that in mind going forward in terms of the plays that I make and picking my spots. Can't do this. I can't get away with this every time.
Yeah, this is the thing that, online when we like, you 3-bet with somebody with 7-deuce off, like of course it's minus EV, but if you show, it could drive the other guy into a frenzy.
Right, exactly.
Implied frenzy.
Exactly, and I mean if you show somebody who's a great poker mind, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
They're just going to use it as information
right.
to use against you. But like if you show it to somebody who doesn't play a lot of poker, like I don't know how much poker Tafo plays. I know he plays a lot of Tetris.
Right. Shout out to Tafo.
Shout out to Tafo. I kept being blown away by his resume because at first I thought he was a Smash Brothers player, pro. And then I learned he was like the 3rd best Tetris player in the world. Mm-hmm. And then I learned actually he's the GM of Complexity Gaming now. And he used to be a rocket scientist.
Yeah. Shout out to CLG.
But he can't get away with 3-betting me in position.
And he had this awesome tweet.
Oh, that tweet was incredible.
Yeah. We're going to shout out. Oh, sorry. Next in. I'm going to read off Tafo's tweet. It's a conversation with his dad. Flight attendant asks, "Is there a doctor on this flight?" Tafo's dad's nudging him, says, "That should have been you." He's like, "Not now, Dad." His dad's like, "Not asking for a Tetris player to help, are they?" Tafo's like, good. "Dad, there's a medical emergency happening now." Dad says, "Go and see if putting the pieces together helps." Tafo just take out the rod and just be like, boom, 4 lines gone.
Yeah.
It's like cancer gone, biatch. So Bryce raises king queen suited, and Jay's gonna call on the hijack 9-8 of diamonds. And this is something, in position with maneuverability that is a bit lost. The Bryce is gonna c-bet.
Bryce is like, I'm glad that I know Bryce, and Bryce is like an incredibly genuine, smart, just like positive, passionate person. Like that guy is smart. He's a thinking player. He's also incredibly good at team fight tactics.
Show the TFT. So you just bully him in position, which is so just like something we learned from online.
Right. Well, I mean, he raised pre-flop, and what did he check call the flop? And
Yeah.
I've basically got it open under to the nuts with three cards. I don't
Yeah.
get there on the turn, but
The
I
three,
have to,
the
you know, if
3-3, yeah.
right. I mean, his range for calling the flop is pretty wide, so
Right.
I can fire two fine there and probably check the river.
So C2 Madalento is a League of Legends player, pro player support.
Support player. That guy is also very thoughtful poker player and like yeah, I mean super strong League of Legends player and crazy grinder, just like really passionate about games, whether it's poker or league.
So Dominic has sevens. Is that right? I missed that. Oh yeah, Dominic has sevens. He limps early, and Jay's got ace-8 of diamonds, limping the cutoff. And the blinds call to Matt's. I'm going to straddle. Jack 10 off.
So the thing with like ace-8 of diamonds in the cutoff here is like you could probably just raise huge and narrow the field and play that kind of strategy. Although I think you get like in this game, I think you get 3-bet by some wonky hands if you do that, and so you kind of like
Yeah.
that's kind of in my head. I'm like, am I going to just play a super huge pot pre-flop with ace-8 of diamonds, or get in there and flop
Top,
right?
and just pin sevens to the ground.
Right. So what did I do? Did I raise? I think I raised the
It
flop.
looks like Team Liquid Steve
right.
bets.
He bets like a small amount.
Yeah, Dominic calls and you
and
raise.
and I raise because like you got top. I mean,
You have top in 2019. What are you gonna do?
in the spot like here, I think a lot of people don't raise. I think they just call. But the thing is, like raising gives you a lot of information. You're in a position you don't need to put.
It's so funny. I did something like this, and the commentator was like, "Oh, you should just call here." I'm like, "No, you should raise here."
I mean, you make the hand like just a lot more straightforward if you raise here, and like if you're gonna put in another 55 on a blank turn, if somebody leads, you might as well be the one doing the.
Get fold equity.
Yeah, you might. I mean, you might just have the best hand. You might as well be the aggressor, though. You can choose what to do when they check to you on the turn.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of what happens here. We get like a jack on the turn, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, Jack 7 folded. Boo-hoo. I'm just kidding.
Right.
And check to you. That's relatively a blank.
Right, but I think I'd check here. Honestly, like thinking about this now,
probably should have bet.
I think I should have bet. Yeah.
And just like if somebody shows resistance, you could throw away your hand.
Right, like because like I think exactly. If somebody comes over the top. Somebody might call with 2-pair. That's fine. Like
I mean, really, the hands you're worrying about, like that you might fold equity to, are like 7-8 of hearts, 9-8 of hearts, 8-10 of hearts that are turning their hand into.
Right, but most of them are just going to call again because I've shown extreme aggression, so I probably miss value by checking there.
Yeah.
Misplayed.
Does Dominic pay you off?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, we all go through this. It's just like. Think about it and move on to the next hand. And it's always easy when you're not there. I mean, like, after you play on camera. This is the first time you play on camera live? For live poker, not online poker? Yeah, so you must change your opinions on a lot of live stuff, right?
You mean after the fact? Or
yeah, after the fact.
Like after I play the hand, or?
No, just like like you played on the show, now you're watching yourself, and this is one of the things, like, I get so self-conscious because, like, I know what I'm thinking and I see myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I probably have the thought while it's happening.
Yeah.
The thing I notice watching myself, though, is, like, I probably have all these tells.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean. Like, I know what I was thinking and then I watch myself. I'm like, oh my God. But luckily, you can't. It's hard unless you actually play on camera yourself. You don't realize these things going on, and then you start being nitpicky about yourself, other people, and it takes experience and practice. And people who play on camera frequently, like, just get better at it.
Yeah, totally, and especially when they watch themselves, right?
Right. Yeah. Because only you know what you're actually thinking. Like, so many people in the audience are like, this person thinking this. I'm like. Yeah, probably not.
Right, but I also feel even not what I'm thinking, but also like physical tells. I feel like I probably have a few.
Yeah, I mean, I've played live for like I don't know, over 15 years, and I saw some stuff. I think people like Garrett and Antonio Esfindia are so good at just like readjusting and like putting a show on camera. Because
Yeah.
when you're the type to be like, I don't want to give anything away, you're still going to give things away.
Yeah, totally.
Dominic A7 off under the gun. He may need some deuces crack coaching. Sean, Jack 10.
Don't go to Deuces Cracked.
Yeah.
Whoever bought Deuces Cracked, it like I don't know what happened if they sold it or what happened to it, but whatever is there now is just like
Not you just
Don't-
it's not yours.
I mean,
Not your baby
somebody
anymore.
messaged me and was like, I signed up, or like, but nobody's there. Nobody's
Yeah.
answering. Nobody. I can't cancel. Can you help? I'm like, I have no idea
Yeah.
who has it, but like, yeah. I mean, it's maybe I would not go there. Sadly.
So it's raised. You raise with ace king off, and then you get 3 callers. Steve's just going to bet out with top pair weak kicker here, and Sean is going to call. And you're going to call here, and then the amazing player you are gonna.
I'm gonna hit a 10.
That's just professional. That's just so professional.
I remember I knew at this point I had red ace king, but I didn't know which one was the heart. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to look because looking is such a fish play.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know one of them. I know they're both big. I know one of them is giving me a flush. I hope it's the ace, but maybe it's the king.
Yeah. Which is fine, but
Yeah. I think if I get into a huge pot, I
yeah,
have to look.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I have to know, right?
Yeah. I have red ace king, but I had to know, so I'm going to Pikachu again.
Yeah.
And Sean's going to bluff at it, and you're like,
Well, Sean is 2 pair, right?
he is, but oh, sorry, yeah, I thought it was a 4-liner. So yeah, he is going to bet 2 pair, and you are just going to call.
Like my thinking here is I'm probably going to call and raise any river where, depending on its bet size.
Sure. And if the board pairs, you could be more careful.
Yeah. Or, yeah, for 4 flushes, I'm going to have a flush.
And there you go, king high
Right.
flush.
And now I'm like, I know I don't have the nuts because I know there's a straight flush. So
But
I'm
he
just
checks,
like, right.
and the way he checks, you're probably pretty confident.
Yeah. So now the question is how much to bet to get whatever to call. Because I know he has a hand. Hope he has a flush. I don't know much about how he plays, but I know like if I bet small, I'm probably not getting check raised by a hand that's turning itself into a bluff. Although, like some players, I feel like if I bet small here and they had Jack 10, they might check raise to try and get me to fold what they think is not the nuts. But I don't have any kind of read, so I just bet big, I think.
Take it down. But you don't play much poker now because you're working.
Yeah, I'm just working all the time, yeah. Plus, like, the thing with me is that I just know poker is sort of such a long-run game, so to like,
Yeah.
play it, I kind of feel like it's pointless because I'm like, well, it's just like I'm going to win, but that's not my actually win rate. And,
Right.
like, you really can only,
Just flop a straight flush draw, just
Yeah.
get there, no problem.
absolutely. I think
You
I
have
just-
10-6 of dime, or
Right.
sorry, 10-6 of clubs, and you limp after a bunch of limpers, flop. Basically a full house.
Yeah, I mean, that's my thinking. Like, compared to the spots that I'm in
Yeah.
with worse, I'm just
Yeah.
like, hell yeah, finally something that can win.
And you're going to bet your straight and flush draw. Chopper calls. So sick. How is 10-5 ahead at 10-6? But JK, you get there. Like, getting there is, like, so unexciting versus flopping it. Like,
Yeah.
flopping the draw, you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, then when you get there, like, yeah, you don't really want to get there. Like,
That early. You want to
Yeah,
get there on
yeah.
the river.
yeah, you want to get there on the river after they.
After you bloated the pot when you're behind.
Exactly. You're trying to bluff your way out, and then you get there, and then they cry and call you.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, massive pot.
Right, but ideally, like sometimes with this particular spot, you just lose to a higher flush, which is
Yeah.
sad.
That's like something that when we were coming up, we may not have paid attention to as much as how many flush over flushes and
It
stuff
happens a
like
lot. And then when you get crushed by that over and
Yeah.
over, you're like, maybe I shouldn't be playing 3-5 suited
Yeah,
under the gun.
exactly. The worst is just like you already pinpoint like a tight player to have like, a top 9 hand,
Yeah.
and then they have ace king of that suit. You're like, whoops.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it happens enough. You start to tighten your range, and
Right.
that's how you start to become better.
So chopper raises with the half I love you 3,000. King 3 hearts.
Yep.
And then that 7-5 of hearts 3 betting, and Nate's gonna call Nate Dogg. Call the queen jack off. And you got the 9-8 of hearts.
Basically the nuts.
Oh yeah. They don't even know.
So Matt 3-bet here. Oh, 5-7 heart.
Yeah, and you have his hearts crushed. Just when I was dissing the lower suited cards, you just dominate his.
Right, so I'm calling the big one. I mean, this is just like a bad call. This is me.
Yeah.
This is me just like knowing I think that the show is going to be over soon and trying to get.
It's not. Yeah, that too. Like I tell the audience when they're like, "Oh my god, it's such a bad play." I was like, we try to play as many hands on camera, like reasonably, so we could like get some hands in, show off.
Right, so now I mean I flop the nuts here and basically like draw to the nuts, right? So like it's basically my thinking is I'm gonna lead and basically see what happens and potentially lead or check raise a turn depending on what it is. Maybe I might continue leading a diamond if I get a call. I'm really gonna put
these young kids don't even know what. How many hands have you played like online and live?
I mean just millions, like so many.
I probably play like 1 million no limit and 1 million limit.
I have no idea how many live hands I've played.
Yeah.
But like a lot.
Live I
Just
probably hit like 200,000.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean I played absolute tons of poker just across all forms, so even though I'm rusty
Yeah.
and there's a lot of mistakes
Oh
in
no,
it,
yeah,
it's like,
yeah. But you still have the game as a scope overall.
yeah, I don't think you can ever lose that. You can just make mistakes in situations you haven't thought about for a long time.
Or just like not optimal.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Your play suboptimal, and you're losing some EV on. A
yeah,
bunch of
but
different
really you're
spots.
not screwing up like that bad.
Yeah, although believe me, I definitely screw. I mean, I didn't on camera here, but I definitely
Yeah.
screw up when I play poker in spots that I never would have when I was younger.
Oh, sure. Like nobody plays perfect, but yeah, same thing. Like I say on broadcast, let's get through this hand. So
I
you
think
have,
discipline is something that you lose the more you move away from playing seriously, because like there are spots where you might have the discipline to make a tough fold when you're playing all the time that you're just now make a crying call.
Yeah, no, I agree. But that's like I don't think that's age. It's more like just being in the mix. Like if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
playing
that's-
every day, then you just know things. You
Yeah.
learn things. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. You're used to the rhythms of the game.
Right. You're used to the players. You know what they see, and you've seen some stuff from them. So it's going to be 2 pair over 2 pair. You're not involved with this hand. You're
Right.
just,
No,
like
but
getting this
I remember thinking, I was just like, I think there was some talk between Chopper and Bryce. It was like, oh, there's nothing you can do because you get
Bryce
two
told me.
pair.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I think you may. I mean, I'm not sure what the action was, but I think you can maybe get away from Queen 5 here. I think Chopper just jams it in on the river also, which is fine. But like, I don't know what Bryce is really necessarily calling with. If like he has a misdraw, he can't call with it. The other thing is like Queen 5 is going to get out 2 paired here just by that's what happens when you play Queen 5.
Right. Something you learn when you're in your Ligro/loose aggressive phase.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Chopper's a thinking player for sure. I think he just likes playing a lot of hands. I think like he keeps playing the style for long enough and sticks around, he's going to be like pretty dangerous.
Sure. A lot of stuff is just like nobody's born knowing this game. You have to like go through some stuff and just like think about it and be like,
Yeah.
it's probably not a good idea.
Right. You have to think about it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And like you have to have that self-awareness
Right.
to like think and change. There's plenty of people who play Queen 5 and are just like telling bad beat story and
Right.
just they have no awareness that they might have made a mistake there
Yeah.
and no desire to admit that.
I think one of the big ones is just like suited connectors, like how they're probably overrated. Even, I mean, at some point when you're very well studied, you don't overrate them. But
Right.
I think players overrate them for a very long time in the development phase, and then just like some cooler situations like flush under flush or lower boat against lower boat or
Yep.
the lower end straight, you just like when you start seeing those, you're like, you got to count that against you.
Right, totally.
Same thing. Let's see what's going on this hand. Oh, it's sixes, and you make. Sorry, Nate's raising 6-5 of hearts, and you're in the cutoff with sixes. You call, trying to flop a set, unfortunately. And this is something you learn is like against aggressive opponents, you can't always like just like set mine or
Right,
the city connectors.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, can I actually set mine here again? Like, if I call, is somebody else going to call? And even then, like, what are the possible situations can unfold? And even if I get
like,
odds.
Do they check fold then?
Right, I mean, the range is so wide that it's like calling with sixes just to set mine. It might be right against the tightest players because you know that you're going to stack them and you have the odds to get a set. But, like, against anybody else, you're out of position with pocket sixes.
Right.
In a nightmare.
Position is one of the big things, one of the big humps that beginning players have to get over. They're always like, oh, I have this hand, I don't want to fold when you're out of position, but like then the mistake compounds.
Right.
Flop, turn, river.
Just how many times are you just like check calling and praying when you're out of position?
So you got outplayed by Chopper here. You checks his ace, and then you smash a pair of nines.
Right.
Drawing thin and getting there. And then he gets a little value out of you.
Yep.
Shout out to Chopper.
Do I pay him off on the river, though, is the question. I don't remember.
I think you made the good fold in the river.
I didn't hit my 8.
You did not hit your 8. I don't remember if you pay off, though. You both rivered a diamond draw.
Yeah, I don't think he...
He went check.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least you got some information out of it. He didn't put you in a tough position. But yeah, just watching your hands and your play, I'm just like, this guy's played a million hands. Regardless of what you are now, I'm just like, he's played a million hands.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly. There was a lot of grinding in my day. I think the great thing about having experienced the online poker boom in America was that if you were in it, you'd play a lot.
Right.
And it was great. Like, there was a lot of players. There was a lot of good money in it.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people now, I'm like, I don't even know. Like, if you love poker and you want to be a professional poker player, by all means, it's definitely doable. But it's not the era that we came up in.
Right, like if you're an American kid and you want to do it, it's so much harder for you, not just because the competition is tougher.
Cost of living.
You can't really play online.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how to leave the country if you really want to become great.
Right.
Or carve your way up in the live scene, which is not nearly as effective
as it used to be.
Yeah. You can't play as many. You just get more experience playing online.
So, you don't know this yet, but... You know, you bluff bet when the ace comes, which is totally reasonable. Sean calls, and then you like look down.
Oh yeah.
You subconsciously look down.
I looked at my chips.
After you got called, you knew you were dead.
Oh yeah.
But you didn't bluff the river because you knew you were getting called.
Right. Yeah. That's
you
cool.
tried to induce the bluff, but
the down look. That's good to know.
Oh yeah. After like your stuff just gets so much. Back on this.
Cool.
No, I just released there's so much depth to poker online live, and I'm not up to date with the software, and I'm not up to date with like the live stuff, but just having like 15 plus years of experience, you know, you catch on some stuff, you read some stuff. Shout out to like Mike Caro's Book of Tells, which is a bit outdated, but you know, good frameworks.
Yeah.
So, and now there's Zach Elwood's reading Poker Tells, and then now with Live at the Bike, it's like if you're a live read player, this stuff is just like invaluable.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's so many great books, even books about the mental game, like Tommy Angelo's books, and Jared Tendler, like those books didn't exist 10 years ago, right? Like, or maybe they did actually now 10 years ago, but before that, now you just have so many more,
resources.
and they're great resources.
You know what's funny is like on Run It Once, Garrett Elston has a live reads video.
Yeah.
But it's only a little clip, and you could subscribe to Run It Once to get the whole thing. And I'm like, and then it cuts off. I'm like,
yeah.
should I subscribe?
I mean, they did that by design. They got you, right? Like,
yeah.
Good for them. Good for Phil.
Yeah. All right. If you're loving this interview, smash that thumbs up button, subscribe. Jay Rosenkrantz, we're going to have the links to his stuff below, so go click on them, everything that you're interested in. And if you're not interested in, just give him a click and give him a thumbs up. Definitely thumbs up the micros. So. All right.
Thanks, y'all.
Hope Jay's coming back to play on the show.
Yeah, hope so.
And
This
let
was
us
fun.
know when Figments is going to make you a billionaire. And we'll shout you out here and say, once upon a time, he was here.
Thanks.
All right, guys.
See you guys.